At 3 in the morning, ruthless underworld kingpin Cade Moriyama finds a young caregiver sitting alone in his kitchen, writing a letter home with trembling hands. Her name is Amara Vale, a South African woman who crossed continents to save her dying sister. She's exhausted, homesick, and heartbreakingly honest in a world built on lies. Cade should walk away. Men like him don't stop for strangers. But something about her quiet strength unsettles him. As rival syndicates sharpen their knives in the shadows, he begins returning home earlier just to hear her laugh. For the first time in years, the feared mafia boss starts feeling something more dangerous than fear: hope. Please like this video, comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels, and follow along to see what happens next. The kitchen light flickered at 3:47 a.m., casting uneven shadows across marble countertops that cost more than most people earned in a year. Cade Moriyama stood in the doorway of his own mansion, gun holster pressing against his ribs beneath a blood-spattered suit jacket, watching a woman he'd hired 3 weeks ago cry over a piece of notebook paper. Amara Vale didn't notice him at first. Her shoulders shook slightly as she wrote, dark curls falling forward to hide her face. The pen in her hand, cheap blue plastic, the kind you'd find at any corner store, moved in careful, deliberate strokes across the page. She kept pausing to wipe her eyes with the back of her wrist. Cade should have turned around, should have climbed the stairs to his empty bedroom, poured himself 3 fingers of scotch, and pretended the last 6 hours of violence hadn't happened. That's what he'd done every night for the past 11 years. Instead, he cleared his throat. Amara jumped, the pen skittering across the table. When she turned, her eyes were red-rimmed and bright with tears she hadn't bothered hiding. Most people who worked for Cade learned to school their expressions into careful neutrality. Amara looked at him like he was just another person who'd walked into a room. "Mr. Moriyama," she said, voice rough. "I didn't hear you come in." "I noticed." Cade stepped into the kitchen, hyper-aware of the gun against his ribs and the faint copper smell of someone else's blood still clinging to his clothes. "It's late." "Early," Amara corrected, glancing at the microwave clock. "Depends on how you look at it." Cade moved to the refrigerator, pulled out a bottle of water. His hands were steady. They were always steady, even when they shouldn't be. "My mother okay?" "Sleeping. Took her medication at 10, read to her until 11:30. Amara folded the letter quickly, tucking it under her forearm. "She asked about you, wanted to know when you'd be home." "What did you tell her?" "That you had business meetings that run late sometimes." Cade almost smiled. Business meetings, that's what they were calling assassination attempts now. He twisted the cap off the water bottle, took a long drink. The cold helped, a little. "You don't have to lie for me." "I'm not lying for you," Amara said. "I'm protecting an elderly woman who doesn't need to spend her nights worrying about whether her son's going to come home in a body bag." The bluntness startled him. Most employees danced around the truth, wrapped reality in layers of polite fiction. Amara just said it straight, like honesty was the only language she spoke. Cade leaned against the counter, studying her. 26, according to the background check his head of security had run. Born in Johannesburg, raised in Cape Town, trained as a nurse before the healthcare system there chewed her up and spat her out. No criminal record, no debt beyond student loans. One younger sister back home with a rare autoimmune disease that required medication most people couldn't afford. That's why she was here, in a stranger's mansion half a world away, writing tearful letters at 4 in the morning. Money. Always money. "Letter to your sister?" Cade asked. Amara's jaw tightened. "Is that allowed?" "I'm asking, not forbidding." She hesitated, then nodded once. "Naledi. She's 14. Wants to know if America is really the way it looks in movies." A sad smile flickered across her face. "I told her California's beautiful, which isn't a complete lie since I drove through it once on the way here." "You've been in the country 3 months, and you've barely left this house." "Your mother needs consistent care." "She needs care," Cade agreed. "She doesn't need a warden who never takes a day off." Amara's eyes flashed. "With respect, Mr. Moriyama, you're not paying me to take days off. You're paying me to keep your mother alive and comfortable, and that's what I'm doing." There it was again. That directness that felt like a slap and a relief all at once. Cade set down the water bottle. "When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" "I sleep fine." That's not what I asked. Amara stood, pushing her chair back with more force than necessary. She was shorter than he'd thought, maybe 5'5", in bare feet, wearing scrubs covered in tiny cartoon penguins that somehow made the whole conversation more surreal. Are you dissatisfied with my work? No. Then why are you interrogating me in your kitchen at 4 in the morning? Good question. Cade didn't have a good answer. He'd walked into his own house expecting silence and darkness, the familiar empty echo of wealth built on violence. Instead, he'd found someone crying at his kitchen table, and something about that raw vulnerability had pulled at threads he'd thought were permanently severed. I'm not interrogating you, he said finally. I'm just making conversation. Amara laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Right, because mob bosses are known for their small talk. The word hung in the air between them. Mob boss. Nobody said it out loud, not in this house. His mother thought he ran import-export businesses. His accountant called him a venture capitalist. His lawyer referred to him as a consultant for high-net-worth individuals. Mob boss was the truth, stripped of its expensive suit. My mother tell you that? Cade asked quietly. Your mother thinks you sell antique furniture. Amara crossed her arms. I have eyes and a functioning brain. Men with legal import-export businesses don't come home at dawn with blood on their cufflinks. Cade glanced down. She was right. Small dark spots dotted his left sleeve, barely visible against the black fabric. He'd missed them. That bother you? He asked. Should it? Most people would say yes. Amara tilted her head, considering him with those dark, intelligent eyes. Most people haven't watched their little sister nearly die 3 times because they couldn't afford medication that costs less than your watch. You want me to judge you, Mr. Moriyama? Fine. You're a criminal. You hurt people, probably kill them. You've built an empire on suffering. Cade's jaw tightened. But you also hired me at twice the market rate, gave me health insurance that covers international dependents, and arranged for your personal physician to consult on Naletti's case free of charge. You love your mother enough to hire round-the-clock care instead of dumping her in a facility. You remember your housekeeper's daughter's birthday. You tip the dry cleaning delivery guy $50 every time. She shrugged. People are complicated. Good, bad. Those are words for children's stories. Real life's messier. Cade stared at her. In 11 years of running the Moriyama syndicate, nobody had ever spoken to him like this. With this particular combination of condemnation and acceptance, judgment and understanding. You should get some sleep, he said, because he didn't know what else to say. So should you. I don't sleep much. Neither do I. Amara picked up her letter, folded it into careful thirds. Nightmares? The question came so casually, like she was asking about the weather. Cade found himself nodding before he could stop himself. Me too, Amara said softly. Sometimes I dream I'm back home, sitting in a hospital waiting room while doctors tell me there's nothing more they can do. I wake up and forget where I am for a second. Think I'm still there, still failing. You're not failing, Cade heard himself say. You're here, you're working, you're sending money home. And she's still sick, but she's alive. Amara's smile was sad and tired. Yeah, she's alive. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Cade had spent most of his adult life surrounded by noise, gunfire, screaming, threats, negotiations, the endless mechanical hum of violence and power. Quiet usually meant danger, meant someone was planning something he couldn't see yet. This quiet felt different, softer, like maybe not everything had to be a weapon. I should go, Amara said eventually. Your mother wakes up around 7, likes her tea at 7:15, breakfast at 8. You've memorized her schedule. That's my job. She moved toward the door, letter clutched in her hand. Cade watched her go, this small, fierce woman who'd crossed an ocean to save her sister, who cried over handwritten letters in empty kitchens, who looked at him and saw both monster and man without flinching from either truth. Amara. She stopped, turned back. Thank you, Cade said, for taking care of her. Something shifted in Amara's expression, surprise melting into warmth. You're welcome, Mr. Moriyama. Cade, he said. You can call me Cade. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Good night, Cade. Good night. He listened to her footsteps fade up the stairs, waited until he heard her bedroom door close. Then he walked to the sink, rolled up his sleeves, and scrubbed the blood from his cufflinks with cold water and dish soap. The water ran pink, then clear. His phone buzzed. Text from Ronan Vega, his second in command. Han Consortium making noise about tonight. SEO wants a meeting. Cade typed back. Tomorrow. Not now. You okay? He looked at the question for a long time. Was he okay? He'd just killed 2 men in a warehouse, watched a third bleed out while begging for mercy. He'd come home to his mansion worth $8 million, found his employee crying in his kitchen, and had the first genuine conversation he'd had in months. Fine, he typed. Upstairs a door opened. Footsteps, lighter than Amara's. His mother, probably heading to the bathroom. He heard Amara's door open again, heard her voice, gentle, patient, asking if Evelyn needed help. Cade dried his hands, climbed the stairs quietly. His mother's door was ajar. Through the gap, he could see Amara helping Evelyn back into bed, adjusting pillows, checking the IV line connected to her medication pump. You work too hard, dear, Evelyn said, patting Amara's hand. You should rest. I rest plenty, Mrs. Moriyama. Call me Evelyn. How many times must I tell you? Amara smiled. At least a dozen more, I think. Evelyn laughed, the sound thin but genuine. My son chose well when he hired you. I wasn't sure at first, so young and from so far away. But you have a good heart, I can tell. I just try to do my job. No. Evelyn's voice was firm despite her frailty. You care. That's different than just working. You care about an old woman you don't even know. Cade watched Amara's expression shift, saw the wall she'd been holding up crack just slightly. You remind me of my grandmother, she admitted quietly. She raised me after my parents died, taught me everything I know about taking care of people. She'd be proud of you. I hope so. Cade stepped back before they could notice him, returned to his own room. He stripped off the blood-stained suit, threw it in the corner for disposal. Took a shower hot enough to hurt, scrubbing away the night's violence with expensive soap that smelled like cedar and smoke. But he couldn't scrub away the image of Amara sitting in his kitchen, writing letters home with tears streaming down her face. He couldn't scrub away the way she'd looked at him, not with fear or disgust, but with a clear-eyed understanding that felt more intimate than anything he'd experienced in years. Cade lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, knowing sleep wouldn't come. It never did anymore, not without help from the pills his doctor prescribed and he rarely took. The darkness pressed down, full of ghosts and choices he couldn't unmake. Somewhere in this house, Amara was probably still awake too, thinking about her sister half a world away. The thought shouldn't have comforted him. It did anyway. 3 weeks passed. Cade started coming home earlier. Not every night. He still had a criminal empire to run, territories to defend, threats to eliminate. But instead of rolling in at dawn, he'd arrive by midnight, sometimes 11. He told himself it was because his mother was getting older, needed him around more. The lie tasted bitter even to him. Truth was, he wanted to see if Amara would be in the kitchen again. And she was, almost every night. Sometimes writing letters, sometimes reading battered paperbacks from the library. Once he found her baking bread, flour dusted across her cheeks and forearms, the whole kitchen smelling like yeast and warmth. Couldn't sleep, she'd explained, not quite meeting his eyes. Thought I'd do something useful. They fell into a rhythm. Cade would come home, find Amara in the kitchen, and they'd talk. About nothing. About everything. She told him about growing up in Cape Town, about the view from Table Mountain, about her sister's obsession with American superhero movies. He found himself telling her things he'd never told anyone, about the history degree he'd started before his father died, about the teacher he'd wanted to become before violence inherited him. You could still teach, Amara said one night. Cade laughed, bitter. What would I teach? Advanced murder? Syndicate Management 101? History. You said you loved history. That was a different person. Was it? Amara looked at him over her mug of tea. Or did you just convince yourself it was easier to become what people expected? The question cut deeper than it should have. Cade didn't answer. His second-in-command noticed the change. Ronan Vega had been with him since the beginning, had helped him build the Moriyama Syndicate from a struggling operation into one of the most powerful criminal organizations on the West Coast. Ronan knew him better than anyone. You're distracted, Ronan said one afternoon in Cade's office. They'd just finished a meeting with their accountant, discussing how to launder $3 million through their network of legitimate businesses. I'm focused, Cade corrected. You're leaving meetings early, turning down jobs. Last week you let the Nakamura family slide on their protection payment. They're struggling. Their patriarch just died. Ronan's eyebrow rose. Since when do we care if they're struggling? Since always. We're not animals. We're criminals, Cade. Compassion is a liability. Cade's jaw tightened. Is there a point to this conversation? Yeah. Ronan leaned forward. The point is that rivals are noticing. Seo Hanrik sent word yesterday that he wants to discuss territories and opportunities. You know what that means. Cade did. The Han Consortium had been testing boundaries for months, pushing into neighborhoods the Moriyama Syndicate had controlled for years. Seo Hanrik was ambitious, ruthless, and smart enough to recognize weakness when he saw it. Schedule the meeting, Cade said. And I'll handle it. Ronan studied him. What's going on with you? Nothing. Bullshit. I've known you 11 years, Cade. Something's different. Cade stood, moved to the window. His office overlooked downtown, a sprawling view of glass towers and crawling traffic. Somewhere down there, people lived normal lives. Went to work, came home, loved their families without wondering if today would be the day someone put a bullet in their skull. I'm tired, he admitted quietly. That's all. Tired of what? Everything. The violence, the constant calculation, the way he had to weigh every word, every action, every relationship against the possibility of betrayal. The way he'd stopped being a person and become a role, a function, a mechanism in a machine built to extract money and fear from the world. Nothing, Cade said again. Schedule the meeting with Seo. I'll handle it. Ronan left, but his concern hung in the air like smoke. That night, Cade came home to find his mother and Amara in the garden. Evelyn sat in her wheelchair, wrapped in blankets despite the mild evening, watching Amara plant something in the flower beds along the back wall. Tomatoes, his mother called out when she saw him. Amara's planting tomatoes. Can you imagine? In my garden. Tomatoes. Cade walked over, loosening his tie. Amara knelt in the dirt, hands muddy, hair pulled back in a messy bun. She'd traded her medical scrubs for jeans and an old t-shirt, and there was dirt smudged across her cheek. She looked happy. Your mother said the garden was wasted on just flowers, Amara explained, sitting back on her heels. Thought we could grow some vegetables, maybe some herbs. I didn't know you gardened. I don't, or didn't. My grandmother had a garden, but I never paid much attention. She smiled. YouTube's been helpful. Evelyn laughed. This generation, they learn everything from the internet. Not everything, Amara said. Some things you can only learn by doing. Cade watched her press soil around a seedling, watched the careful concentration on her face. Something in his chest twisted, an ache he couldn't name. Your suit's very nice, dear, Evelyn said, pulling his attention back. You have a good meeting? It was fine, Mom. He always says that, Evelyn told Amara. Even when I know things aren't fine. Very secretive, my son. Maybe he doesn't want you to worry, Amara suggested. Maybe. Evelyn's eyes were sharp despite her age and illness. Or maybe he's forgotten that mothers always know when their children are carrying heavy things. Cade felt seen in a way that made him uncomfortable. I should change. Let you two get back to your gardening. Stay, his mother said. Amara's been teaching me about companion planting. Did you know some plants help each other grow, protect each other from pests? I didn't know that. Basil and tomatoes, Amara added, pointing to another section of the bed. They're good partners. The basil keeps away aphids and hornworms. Nature's bodyguards, Cade said before he could stop himself. Amara's eyes met his, something unreadable flickering across her expression. I guess so. He stayed. Didn't change out of his expensive suit, just rolled up his sleeves and knelt in the dirt beside Amara while his mother directed operations from her wheelchair. They planted tomatoes and peppers and herbs whose names Cade forgot as soon as Amara said them. His hands got dirty. His pants got stained. And for an hour, maybe two, he forgot about the meeting with Seo Hanrik, forgot about territories and violence, and the constant grinding pressure of maintaining power through fear. He just planted things in the ground and listened to Amara talk about companion planting like it was the most important thing in the world. You're a natural, Amara said, watching him firm soil around a basil plant. At gardening? At caring for living things? She paused. I know that probably sounds strange given your profession, but I've watched you with your mother, the way you check on her when you think nobody's looking, the way you remember what she likes, what makes her comfortable. That takes practice, takes actual caring. Cade's throat felt tight. She's my mother. Plenty of people have mothers they don't give a damn about. Is that how it was for you, your parents, before they died? Amara's hand stilled in the soil. No. They loved me and Naledi more than anything. That's probably why losing them hurt so much. She swallowed hard. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. My dad died instantly. My mom held on for 3 days. I'm sorry. Me too. She started planting again, movements mechanical. I was 16. Naledi was 5. Our grandmother took us in, raised us like we were her own kids all over again. But it wasn't the same, you know? Cade did know. His own father had died when Cade was 22. Not in an accident, but in a hail of bullets from a rival syndicate trying to take over their territory. His mother had never recovered, not really. The strong, vibrant woman who'd raised him had slowly faded into someone fragile, someone who needed protection from the world her husband and son had chosen. My father died violently too, Cade said quietly. My mother watched it happen. Amara's head snapped up. Oh God, Cade, I'm so sorry. It was a long time ago. Doesn't make it hurt less. No, it didn't. They finished planting as the sun set, washing the garden in gold and amber. Evelyn had dozed off in her wheelchair, chin resting on her chest. Amara cleaned her hands on a rag, stood, stretched. Her t-shirt rode up, exposing a strip of brown skin above her jeans. Cade looked away quickly, but not before she noticed. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. Acknowledgement, maybe. Awareness. The recognition that they'd stopped being just employer and employee somewhere along the way. I should get her inside, Amara said, voice slightly rough. Yeah. Cade lifted his mother carefully, carried her into the house while Amara gathered the gardening tools. Inside, he laid Evelyn on her bed while Amara changed her into pajamas, checked her medication pump, made sure everything was stable. She's getting weaker, Amara said when they were back in the hallway. I don't want to alarm you, but her vitals have been declining, slowly but consistently. How long? I don't know. Could be months, could be years, but you should prepare yourself. Cade leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. I'm not ready to lose her. Nobody's ever ready. She's all I have left. All that's good in my life. Amara stepped closer, close enough that he could smell the garden soil on her skin, the faint sweetness of her shampoo. That's not true, isn't it? You have Ronan, your people who are loyal to you, this house, your businesses. Built on blood and fear, Cade interrupted. None of it's good, Amara. It's all just different shades of necessary evil. Then change it. I can't. Why not? Because I'm in too deep. Because if I try to walk away, someone will put a bullet in my head before I make it to the door. Because this is who I am now, and there's no going back to who I was before. Amara's hand found his, fingers threading through his dirt-stained knuckles. The touch was electric, grounding. You're not who you were before, she agreed. But that doesn't mean you can't become someone new. Cade looked at their joined hands, at the contrast between her skin and his, the way her fingers fit perfectly in the spaces between his own. Why do you care? Because despite everything, despite what you do and who you are, I think you're a good person trying very hard to convince yourself you're not. You barely know me. I know enough. She squeezed his hand once, then let go. Get some rest, Cade. You look exhausted. She disappeared into her room before he could respond. Cade stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at her closed door, feeling the ghost of her touch on his skin. For the first time in 11 years, he wanted something more than power or safety or revenge. He wanted hope, and that terrified him more than any gun ever had. The meeting with Seo Hanrich took place in a private room at an upscale restaurant downtown. Neutral territory, no weapons, everyone pretending this was a civilized discussion between businessmen instead of a negotiation between predators. Seo arrived with 2 bodyguards, both wearing suits that barely contained their bulk. The man himself was in his 50s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, radiating the kind of confidence that came from decades of winning. Cade Moriyama, Seo said, extending his hand. Thank you for meeting with me. Cade shook it, assessing. Firm grip, no hesitation. Either genuinely confident or an excellent actor. Seo, I understand you wanted to discuss territories. Among other things, Seo gestured to the chairs. Please, sit. They sat. Ronan hovered near the door, watching everything. Cade had learned to read his second-in-command's body language years ago. Right now, Ronan was tense, alert, ready for violence. I'll be direct, Seo said. The Han Consortium has been expanding. We've acquired new operations, new income streams. But we're constrained by geography. Your eastern territories would be beneficial to our growth. Those territories aren't for sale. Everything's for sale at the right price. Not to me. Seo smiled, thin and cold. I respect your loyalty to your holdings, Cade. I do. But the world is changing. The old alliances, the old boundaries, they don't serve anyone anymore. We could accomplish much more working together than working against each other. I'm listening. A partnership. The Han Consortium handles distribution in the Eastern Territories, splits the profit 70-30 in your favor. You maintain ownership, we provide the infrastructure and protection. Everyone wins. Cade kept his expression neutral, but internally he was calculating. 70-30 sounded generous on the surface, but giving Seo any foothold in those territories would be disastrous long-term. Within 2 years, maybe less, the Han Consortium would have enough leverage to push Cade out entirely. Interesting proposal, Cade said. I'll need time to consider it. Of course. Though I should mention, there are others interested in those territories as well. The Nakamura family, for instance. They've approached us about a similar arrangement. A threat, wrapped in silk. Cade's jaw tightened. The Nakamuras are struggling. They don't have the capital for expansion. True, but desperation makes people creative, makes them willing to accept terms they'd normally refuse. Seo leaned back, studying Cade. You seem distracted lately. Word on the street is the great Cade Moriyama has gone soft. Street talk is usually bullshit. Usually, not always. Theo's eyes glittered. I heard you hired a new caregiver for your mother. Young woman from South Africa. Pretty, from what I understand. Every muscle in Cade's body went rigid. Ronan shifted near the door, hand moving closer to the gun concealed beneath his jacket. My household staff isn't your concern, Cade said, voice deadly quiet. Of course not. I'm simply making conversation. Seo smiled. Though I must say it's touching. A son who cares so much about his aging mother that he brings in specialized care from another continent. Family is important. We should all protect what's precious to us. The implication hung in the air like poison gas. Cade stood slowly, buttoning his jacket. I'll consider your proposal. You'll have my answer within the week. I look forward to it. Outside, Ronan grabbed Cade's arm. He knows about Amara. I noticed. This is bad, Cade. If the Han Consortium thinks they can use her as leverage, they can't. Cade pulled free, stalking toward the car. Because I'm not going to let them anywhere near her. Then you need to send her away, tonight. Get her out of the country before this gets worse. The suggestion hit Cade like a physical blow. Send Amara away. Remove her from his life, from his mother's care. Ship her back to South Africa, where she'd be safe from men like Seo Hanrich. The logical part of his brain knew Ronan was right. The selfish, hungry part of him recoiled from the idea. No, Cade said. Cade, Oh, I said no. He climbed into the back of the car, slammed the door. Ronan got in beside him, and they rode in tense silence back to the office. That night, Cade came home later than usual. The house was dark except for a light in the kitchen. Of course. Amara sitting at the table with another letter, another cup of tea. She looked up when he entered, and her expression shifted immediately. What happened? Nothing. You're lying. She stood, moving toward him. Cade, what happened? He should tell her, should explain that his enemies knew about her now, that her presence in his life had made her a target. Should send her away before someone decided to use her against him. Instead, he said, How's my mother? Don't do that. Don't deflect. Amara, something's wrong. I can see it all over your face. Her hand touched his arm, warm through his shirt sleeve. Talk to me. Cade looked at her. This woman who'd somehow become the best part of his days, who made him want to be someone better than the monster he'd become. And he realized he couldn't send her away, couldn't protect her by pushing her out of his life. He was too selfish for that, too far gone. There's a man, Cade said quietly, Seo Hanrik. He runs the Han Consortium, a rival organization. He wants my territory, and he knows about you. Amara's eyes widened. What does that mean? It means you're in danger now. Being near me, working for me, it puts a target on your back. Then I'll be careful. Careful isn't enough. These people don't play by rules. They'll hurt you to hurt me, and they won't lose sleep over it. So what are you saying? I should leave? The question hung between them. Cade knew the right answer, knew what he should say. No, he heard himself whisper. I'm saying you should stay, and I'm going to protect you. Cade, I know it's selfish. I know I should send you somewhere safe, but I can't. He stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. I can't let you go. Amara's breath caught. Why? Because you're the only good thing in my life besides my mother. Because you look at me like I'm human instead of a monster. Because when I come home, I'm not hoping for darkness anymore. I'm hoping you'll be in the kitchen, writing your letters, being stubbornly honest in a world full of liars. That's a terrible reason to put me in danger. I know. They stood there, inches apart, the kitchen light humming overhead. Cade could see her pulse racing at the base of her throat, could feel the heat radiating from her skin. If I stay, Amara said slowly, and if people like Seo Hanrik think they can use me against you, I need to know what I'm dealing with. All of it. No more polite fictions about import-export businesses. You want the truth? I deserve the truth. Cade took a breath. My father ran the Moriyama syndicate before me. When he died, I inherited it. 11 years ago, I was a grad student studying history. Now I run one of the largest criminal organizations on the West Coast. We control gambling, protection rackets, money laundering, weapons trafficking. We hurt people who cross us. We kill people who threaten us. I've personally killed 17 men, maybe more. I stopped counting after a while. Amara didn't flinch. And your mother doesn't know. She knows I'm involved in something dangerous. She doesn't know the details. I've kept her separate from it as much as possible. That's why you hired me. Someone outside your organization, someone who could care for her without being part of that world. Yes. Amara nodded slowly, processing. Okay. Okay. I'm staying. If you promise to actually protect me, not just say you will. If you promise to tell me when I'm in danger instead of hiding it. I promise. Then we have a deal. She held out her hand, formal and absurd. I'll keep taking care of your mother. You keep us both safe. Cade took her hand, shook it, but he didn't let go. Couldn't let go. Their fingers intertwined and he pulled her closer, erasing the last inches between them. I'm going to fail you, he said quietly. At some point, I'm going to make the wrong call or move too slowly, and you're going to get hurt because of me. Probably, Amara agreed. But that's true for anyone, in any situation. Life's dangerous. Being careful only gets you so far. This is different. I know. She reached up with her free hand, touched his face. Her fingers were warm against his jaw. But I'm still staying. Cade leaned into her touch, felt something fundamental shift in his chest. He was supposed to be calculating, strategic, a man who weighed every relationship against profit and risk. But standing in his kitchen at 1 a.m. with Amara's hand on his face, he didn't feel strategic. He felt human, vulnerable, terrified in a way no gun or threat had ever made him. He was falling for her, had already fallen, maybe. And in his world, that kind of feeling was a death sentence waiting to happen. Get some rest, he managed. It's late. Amara smiled, sad and knowing. You too. She left. Cade stood in the empty kitchen, feeling the ghost of her touch, the warmth where her body had been close to his. Outside, a car cruised past the mansion, too slow to be innocent. Cade moved to the window, watched it disappear around the corner. His phone buzzed. Text from Ronan. Surveillance on the house. 3 vehicles. Han Consortium. Cade typed back. Increase security. Nobody gets near the property. Copy that. Upstairs, a door opened. Footsteps. Amar's voice. Soft. Checking on his mother. Cade closed his eyes, fists clenching. He'd made a choice tonight, a selfish one. He'd chosen to keep Amara close instead of sending her to safety. Now he had to live with the consequences. Now he had to make sure she survived them. The surveillance didn't stop. For 3 days straight, black sedans circled the mansion at irregular intervals. Different cars, different drivers, but always the same slow crawl past the front gates, the same lingering pause at the corner where the security cameras had a blind spot. The Han Consortium wasn't even trying to be subtle anymore. They wanted Cade to know they were watching, wanted him to feel the pressure. Ronan doubled the security detail. Armed guards now patrolled the perimeter in 8-hour shifts. Cameras were installed to cover every angle. The mansion transformed from a home into a fortress, bristling with weapons and paranoia. Amara noticed immediately. There are men with guns in the garden, she said on the 4th morning, standing in the kitchen doorway with her arms crossed. She'd just finished getting Evelyn settled for breakfast, and her expression was carved from stone. Care to explain? Cade looked up from his coffee. He hadn't slept in 2 days, running on caffeine and adrenaline, coordinating with Ronan to shore up their defenses while simultaneously trying to figure out what CO's endgame was. Security precaution. That's not an explanation. It's the only one I have right now. Amara moved into the kitchen, closed the door behind her. You promised to tell me when I was in danger. Remember that conversation? The one where you swore you'd be honest? You're not in immediate danger. Cade. The Han Consortium is watching the house. They're trying to intimidate me, make me nervous. It's psychological warfare, nothing more. And when it becomes something more, Cade's jaw tightened. Then I'll handle it. How comforting. Amar poured herself tea, movements sharp with barely controlled anger. Your mother asked me this morning why there were strange men outside. What am I supposed to tell her? Tell her they're private security. Tell her there's been some break-ins in the neighborhood. You want me to lie to her? I want you to not terrify an elderly woman who's already struggling with her health. Amara slammed the teacup down hard enough that tea sloshed over the rim. Don't you dare make this about what I'm doing wrong. You're the one who brought this violence to her doorstep. You're the one who built a life so twisted that your own mother needs armed guards just to feel safe in her home. The words hit like bullets. Cade stood slowly, hands flat on the counter. Watch it. Or what? You'll have your men escort me out, fire me? Send me back to South Africa, where I can watch my sister die because I can't afford her medication? Amara's eyes blazed. You think I don't know how trapped I am here? How completely dependent I've become on your blood money? That's not fair. None of this is fair, her voice cracked. I came here to save my sister. That's it. That's all I wanted. And now I'm caught in the middle of some gang war because you decided to keep me around like some kind of pet project to make yourself feel human again. The accusation stung because it was partially true. Cade had kept her close for selfish reasons, had ignored every warning sign screaming at him to send her away. And now she was paying the price for his weakness. I'm trying to protect you, he said quietly. By turning my workplace into a prison? By putting men with assault rifles in the garden where your mother likes to sit? Amara's hands were shaking. This isn't protection, Cade. This is you trying to control a situation that's already spiraling out of control. What do you want me to do? I want you to be honest about what's happening. I want you to tell me the truth instead of feeding me comfortable lies. She moved closer and Cade could see the exhaustion etched into her face. I can handle the truth. What I can't handle is being kept in the dark while men with guns circle the house. Cade took a breath. Seo Hanrich is escalating. The surveillance is just the opening move. He's going to keep pushing until I either give him what he wants or push back hard enough that he reconsiders. And what does he want? My territory, my operations, everything I've built. And me? Amara's voice was very quiet. What does he want with me? Leverage. If he can get to you, he can control me. So I'm bait. No, you're... Cade stopped, searching for words that wouldn't sound like the desperate justification they were. You're important to me, which makes you a target. Amara laughed, sharp and bitter. That's what I thought. She turned toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Cade, I don't think you're a monster, but I think you're so used to thinking of yourself as one that you've forgotten how to be anything else. She left. Cade stood in the empty kitchen, feeling like he'd been gutted. His phone buzzed. Ronan. Need you at the office. Situation with the Nakamura family. Cade typed back. Give me an hour. He went upstairs, showered, changed into a fresh suit. Through the window, he could see one of the guards patrolling the garden path where Amara had planted tomatoes 2 weeks ago. The plants were already growing, small green shoots reaching toward sunlight. Everything he touched eventually withered or died. Why should this be any different? Ashake, the Nakamura situation was worse than Ronan had implied. Cade walked into his office to find 3 members of the Nakamura family waiting. Brothers, all in their 30s, wearing cheap suits and desperate expressions. Their patriarch had died 6 weeks ago, leaving behind a failing operation and debts that would take years to repay. Cade had given them a grace period on their protection payments. Apparently, the Han Consortium had noticed. Mr. Moriyama, the eldest brother said, standing quickly. Thank you for seeing us. Cade gestured for them to sit. Ronan stood by the door, arms crossed, radiating disapproval. What can I do for you? We wanted to warn you. Seo Hanrik approached us 3 days ago. He offered to absorb our operations, clear our debts, if we gave him information about your eastern territories. And what did you tell him? That we needed time to consider. The brothers' hands twisted together. We wanted to speak with you first. Our family has worked with the Moriyama syndicate for 20 years. We don't want to betray that relationship. But you're considering his offer, Cade said flatly. We're drowning, Mr. Moriyama. Our father left us with nothing but debt and enemies. The protection payments alone are crippling us. We can barely keep our legitimate businesses running. Cade studied them. 3 men, scared and cornered, trying to navigate a world that would chew them up without hesitation. A month ago, he would have crushed them for even considering Seo's offer, would have made an example brutal enough that no one else would dare similar betrayal. Now, looking at their frightened faces, he just felt tired. How much do you owe? He asked. The eldest brother blinked. Excuse me? Total debt, how much? Including the protection payments we've missed, interest, loans from other families, about 2 million. I'll clear it, all of it. Silence. Ronan shifted by the door, tension radiating from his frame. In exchange, Cade continued, you feed CO false information. Tell him you've agreed to work with him. Give him bad intel about my operations, my security, my movements. Make it believable but wrong in the details that matter. The brothers stared at him. You want us to be double agents. I want you to survive. This is how you do it. Play both sides, feed him lies, and when this is over, you'll owe me instead of him. Cade leaned back. Seo Hanrik is ambitious, but he's not patient. He'll act on bad information if it's presented well enough. And when he does, I'll be ready. And if he discovers we're lying, then you'll die. But you're going to die anyway if you actually betray me, so at least this way you have a chance. The eldest brother swallowed hard. We accept. Good. Ronan will coordinate the details. Give him everything Seo's asked for, everything he wants to know. We'll craft the misinformation together. They left. The moment the door closed, Ronan exploded. What the hell was that? Strategy, Cade said calmly. That was you being soft. $2 million, Cade? To clear the debts of a family that was about to sell you out? They came to me first. That counts for something. It counts for nothing. They're desperate, which makes them unreliable. You should have made an example of them, not rewarded their weakness. Cade stood, moved to the window. And then what? CO recruits someone else, someone who won't warn me first. At least this way we control the narrative. You're changing, Ronan said quietly, and not for the better. Meaning? Meaning, you used to make decisions based on what was best for the organization. Now you're making decisions based on feelings, compassion, mercy. Ronan's voice hardened. Those things will get you killed in our world. Maybe our world needs to change. It won't. It'll just replace you with someone more ruthless. Ronan moved closer. Is this about her, the caregiver? Cade's hands clenched into fists. Leave Amara out of this. I can't. Because she is exactly what this is about. You've been different since she showed up. Distracted, soft, making choices that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. She has nothing to do with how I run my organization. Bullshit. She has everything to do with it. Ronan's expression was almost pitying. You're falling in love with her, Cade, and love is the stupidest thing a man in your position can do. We're done here, are we? Because from where I'm standing, we're just getting started. Ronan pulled out his phone, pulled up a photo, showed it to Cade. Amara, leaving a grocery store downtown. The image was grainy, taken from a distance, but unmistakably her. She was carrying bags, looking over her shoulder like she sensed she was being watched. Han Consortium took this yesterday, Ronan said. They're following her when she leaves the house, documenting her movements, her routines. They know where she shops, where she gets coffee, what route she takes back to the mansion. Cade's blood turned to ice. She shouldn't be leaving the house. She's not a prisoner. You can't lock her up just because you're scared. I can if it keeps her alive. For how long? Until Seo gets bored and moves on? That's not how this works, and you know it. Ronan pocketed the phone. You have two choices. Send her away, or accept that eventually they're going to use her against you. There's a third choice. Which is? End this before they get the chance. Ronan's eyebrows rose. You want to go to war with the Han Consortium. I want to make it clear that threatening my people has consequences. Your people, Ronan repeated. She's been working for you for a month and a half, Cade. That doesn't make her family. That doesn't make her worth starting a war over. Cade turned, and something in his expression made Ronan take a step back. Don't tell me what she is or isn't worth. You don't get to make that call. Then who does? You? Because right now you're thinking with your dick instead of your brain. Cade moved fast, grabbed Ronan by the collar, slammed him against the wall. Say that again. Ronan didn't fight back, just stared at him with flat, assessing eyes. Prove me wrong. Make a decision that's actually strategic instead of emotional. Show me you're still the man who built this empire instead of someone who's about to burn it down for a woman he barely knows. Cade held him there for another second, then let go. Ronan straightened his jacket, expression unreadable. I've been with you since the beginning, Ronan said quietly. I've watched you make impossible choices, survive things that would have broken anyone else. I respect the hell out of you, Cade, but I also know what happens when powerful men fall in love. They make mistakes. They get people killed. I'm not making mistakes. You cleared $2 million in debt for a family that was about to betray you. You're keeping a civilian in your house despite knowing she's a target. You're preparing for war over a woman you met 6 weeks ago. Ronan shook his head. Those are all mistakes. You just don't want to admit it. He left. Cade stood alone in his office, heart hammering, hand shaking with suppressed rage. The worst part was that Ronan was right. About all of it. Cade was making decisions based on emotion instead of strategy, was prioritizing Amara's safety over the organization's interests, was falling in love like a stupid kid instead of the hardened criminal he'd spent 11 years becoming. And he didn't know how to stop. He came home that night to find Amara and his mother in the living room, watching an old movie. Some black and white romance from the 50s, all dramatic music and declarations of eternal love. Evelyn was dozing in her wheelchair, a blanket tucked around her legs. Amara sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, completely absorbed in the screen. She looked young like this, vulnerable, nothing like the fierce, stubborn woman who'd torn into him that morning. Cade stood in the doorway, watching. On screen, the male lead was confessing his love, promising to protect the woman no matter the cost. The dialogue was melodramatic, overwrought, the kind of thing that would never happen in real life. Except Cade understood it perfectly. The desperate need to keep someone safe, even when the whole world was trying to tear them apart. Amara noticed him, turned. Their eyes met. Something passed between them, acknowledgement of the morning's fight, the tension still crackling between them, the unspoken thing that kept growing no matter how much they both tried to ignore it. Your mother wanted to watch something romantic, Amara said quietly. I think she's matchmaking. She does that. Is it working? The question hung in the air. Cade moved into the room, sat on the arm of the couch, careful to maintain distance. I don't know. Is it? I'm still mad at you. I know. But I understand why you did what you did. The guards, the security, you're trying to protect us. Amara's fingers played with the edge of the blanket. Doesn't mean I have to like feeling trapped. I'm sorry. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you'd do the exact same thing again. She was right. He would. What do you want me to say? I want you to say that you'll talk to me before making decisions about my safety. That you'll treat me like a person who gets a say in her own life, not a problem you need to solve. I can do that. Can you? Or are you just saying what I want to hear? Cade looked at her, really looked at her. The suspicion in her eyes, the wariness in her posture. She was pulling back, rebuilding walls he'd watched her lower over the past few weeks, and he was the one forcing her to do it. I'm terrified, he admitted quietly. Every second you're in this house, I'm terrified something's going to happen to you, that I'm going to make the wrong call or move too slowly, and you're going to pay the price for my failures. So send me away. I can't. Why not? Because I'm selfish. Because despite knowing it's the right thing to do, the smart thing to do, I can't stand the thought of you leaving. He ran a hand through his hair, exhausted. You were right this morning. I kept you around to make myself feel human again. That's exactly what I did. And now I don't know how to let you go. Amara was quiet for a long time. On screen, the movie reached its climax, orchestral music swelling as the lovers reunited. This is a terrible idea, she said finally. I know. We barely know each other. I know. You're a criminal. I'm a caregiver. We exist in completely different worlds. I know. And I'm still staying. Cade's breath caught. What? I'm staying, not because you want me to, but because I want to. Amara turned to face him fully. I should be running as far and as fast as I can. Every rational part of my brain is screaming at me to get out before this gets worse. But the irrational parts, the parts that like talking to you at 3 a.m, the parts that watch you with your mother and see someone gentle underneath all the violence, those parts want to stay. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Probably. She smiled, sad and real. But I'm doing it anyway. Cade wanted to kiss her, wanted it so badly his whole body ached with the need. But Evelyn was right there, dozing in her wheelchair, and the moment felt too fragile to push. Instead, he reached out, took Amara's hand. She let him, fingers threading through his. They sat like that, watching the end of the movie in silence while his mother slept. Outside, guards patrolled the perimeter. Security cameras captured every angle. The mansion sat locked down tight, a fortress against the violence circling ever closer. But inside this room, holding Amar's hand while black and white lovers kissed on screen, Cade felt something close to peace. It wouldn't last. He knew that. Peace never lasted in his world. But for now, for this moment, it was enough. Amar? 2 days later, Evelyn collapsed. Cade was at the office, in the middle of a meeting with their accountant, when Amara called. He answered on the first ring, already moving toward the door. It's your mother, Amara said, voice tight with controlled panic. She had some kind of seizure. I've called an ambulance. We're heading to St. Catherine's Hospital. I'm on my way. The drive took 20 minutes that felt like hours. Ronan drove, weaving through traffic while Cade sat in the passenger seat, hands clenched into fists, mind racing through worst-case scenarios. His mother was 73. She'd been declining for months, maybe years. Amara had warned him this was coming, that he needed to prepare himself. But how do you prepare for losing the only family you have left? The only person who'd seen you before the violence, who remembered who you were supposed to be. St. Catherine's emergency room was chaos. Cade pushed through, flashing credentials that opened doors, until he found Amara in a private waiting area. She stood when she saw him, and he could see she'd been crying. What happened? He demanded. She was eating breakfast, just eating oatmeal and talking about the garden. Then her eyes rolled back and she started convulsing. I got her on the floor, made sure she didn't hurt herself, called for help. Amara's voice shook. The paramedics said it looked like a stroke. They took her straight back when we arrived. Is she? I don't know. They won't tell me anything because I'm not family. Cade grabbed a passing nurse, showed her his ID. Evelyn Moriyama. She was brought in 20 minutes ago. I'm her son. The nurse's expression softened. The doctors are with her now. Someone will update you as soon as possible. That's not good enough. I need to see her. Sir, I understand, but now. Something in his tone made the nurse reconsider. Wait here. I'll find out what I can. She disappeared. Cade stood in the waiting room, hands shaking, feeling like the walls were closing in. This was his fault. All of it. The stress of the past few weeks, the guards, the tension in the house, it had been too much for her fragile system. He'd killed his mother by trying to protect her. Amara's hand found his. Hey, breathe. I can't. Yes, you can. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Come on. He followed her instructions, focusing on the simple mechanics of breathing. In, out, in, out. It's not your fault, Amara said quietly. You don't know that. I know your mother has been sick for a long time. I know this was always a possibility, regardless of what was happening in your life. She squeezed his hand. You didn't cause this, Cade. Then why does it feel like I did? Before Amara could answer, a doctor emerged from the restricted area. Young, maybe early 30s, wearing scrubs and an exhausted expression. Family of Evelyn Moriyama? Cade stepped forward. I'm her son. Your mother suffered an ischemic stroke. A blood clot blocked one of the arteries in her brain, cutting off oxygen to that region. We've administered clot-busting medication, but the next 72 hours are critical. Is she going to survive? I can't make promises. She's stable for now, but stroke recovery is unpredictable. Age, pre-existing conditions, the severity of the initial event, all of those factor into outcomes. The doctor's expression gentled. You can see her, but she's sedated. She probably won't wake up for several hours. They followed the doctor through sterile hallways to a private room. Evelyn lay in the hospital bed, looking impossibly small beneath white sheets. Tubes and wires connected her to machines that beeped and hummed, tracking vitals, delivering medication, keeping her tethered to life through technology. Cade stood frozen in the doorway. Go on, Amara murmured. I'll wait outside. No, stay. She hesitated, then followed him in. Cade moved to his mother's bedside, took her hand. It was cold, fragile, the bones sharp beneath papery skin. Mom, he said, voice cracking. I'm here. I'm right here. No response. Just the steady beep of monitors, the mechanical hiss of oxygen. I'm sorry, Cade continued. For everything. For the life I chose. For the danger I brought into your home. For not being the son you deserved. I'm sorry I couldn't be the man Dad wanted me to be. I'm sorry I let you down. Amara's hand touched his shoulder, warm and steady. You didn't let her down, she said. You've taken care of her, protected her, made sure she had everything she needed. That's not failure, Cade. That's love. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does. But it's all any of us can offer. They stayed for hours. Amara sat in a chair near the window, reading quietly from a book she'd found in the waiting room. Cade stood by his mother's bed, holding her hand, willing her to wake up. Ronan brought food they didn't eat, coffee that went cold, updates about the business that Cade barely processed. The world outside this hospital room felt distant, irrelevant. Nothing mattered except the woman in this bed and the steady rhythm of machines keeping her alive. Night fell. The nurses changed shifts. A different doctor came by, checked vitals, adjusted medication. Evelyn's condition remained stable. Not improving, but not deteriorating either. Stuck in limbo, balanced on a knife's edge between life and death. Somewhere past midnight, Amara moved to stand beside Cade. You should rest. I'm fine. You haven't slept in days. Neither have you. I can function on no sleep. It's part of the job. She studied his face. But you're running on fumes and stubbornness, and that's not sustainable. I'm not leaving her. I'm not asking you to leave. I'm asking you to sit down, close your eyes for 20 minutes. Let me watch over her while you rest. Cade wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling at him like gravity. He moved to the chair Amara had vacated, sank into it. 20 minutes. Sure. He closed his eyes, just for a moment, just to rest them. When he opened them again, dawnlight was streaming through the window and Amara was asleep in the other chair, head tilted at an uncomfortable angle. His mother's monitors still beeped steadily. Nothing had changed. Cade stood, moved to Amara, touched her shoulder gently. She woke instantly, alert in the way healthcare workers learn to be. You said 20 minutes, she accused groggily. You let me sleep for 6 hours. You needed it. They stood together, looking at Evelyn. In the morning light, she looked older, more fragile. The stroke had stolen something from her face, some essential vitality that even illness hadn't completely erased before. "I'm not ready to lose her," Cade said quietly. "I know. She's all I have that's good, all that's real." Amara's hand found his. "That's not true anymore." He looked at her. Amara met his gaze steadily. No hesitation, no fear, just quiet certainty. "You have me," she said, "for whatever that's worth." Cade's throat tightened. "That's worth everything." He pulled her close, wrapped his arms around her, buried his face in her hair. Amara held him back, solid and warm and real. They stood like that for a long time, finding comfort in each other while machines beeped and morning traffic hummed outside the window. "I think I'm falling in love with you," Cade whispered, "and it terrifies me." "Good," Amara said against his chest. "Because I'm falling in love with you too, and I'm absolutely terrified." He pulled back enough to see her face. "This is the worst possible time for this." "Probably. We're going to hurt each other." "Definitely." "And you still want to do this?" Amara reached up, touched his face, traced the line of his jaw with gentle fingers. "I've crossed an ocean, left everything I knew, worked myself half to death for a chance to save my sister. I'm not afraid of hard things, Cade. I'm afraid of living small, playing it safe, letting fear make my choices." She smiled. "So yeah, I still want to do this." Cade kissed her. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was desperate, hungry, 11 years of emotional starvation pouring into one moment. Amara kissed him back with equal intensity, hands tangling in his hair, body pressed against his. They broke apart, gasping. "That was..." Amara started. "Yeah. We should probably..." "Definitely." But neither of them moved. They stood in the hospital room, foreheads pressed together, breathing each other's air while Cade's mother slept, and dawn light turned everything gold. For the first time in years, Cade felt something bigger than fear or anger or the grinding necessity of survival. He felt hope. It wouldn't last. Nothing good ever lasted in his world. But for now, for this moment, he let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he could have this. Could be this. Could become someone worth the faith Amara was placing in him. His phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Text from Ronan. "Need you back at the office. Seo's making moves." Cade sighed, stepped back. "I have to go." "I'll stay with her. Call if anything changes." "Thank you." He kissed her once more, quick and hard, then forced himself to leave. Out in the hallway, the real world crashed back in. Responsibilities, threats, the empire that wouldn't run itself. But something had shifted. Some fundamental reordering of priorities that he couldn't take back even if he wanted to. Amara was no longer just his employee or his mother's caregiver or a complication in his carefully managed life. She was his, and he was hers, and God help anyone who tried to come between them. Ishate. The situation with Seo had escalated. Cade walked into his office to find Ronan surrounded by surveillance photos, incident reports, territorial maps marked up with red pen. The Nakamura brothers sat in the corner, looking nervous. "What happened?" Cade demanded. "Han Consortium hit 3 of our protection operations last night," Ronan said without preamble. "Targeted attacks, coordinated timing. They burned down a warehouse in the Port District, vandalized 2 gambling dens, and sent a message to our clients that the Moriyama Syndicate can't protect them anymore." Cade's hands clenched into fists. "Casualties?" "2 of our guys injured, neither critical, but the message was clear. Seo's done negotiating. He's forcing my hand." "Yeah, question is, what are you going to do about it?" Cade moved to the desk, studied the maps. The attacks had been strategic, hitting vulnerable points in their operation while avoiding locations with heavy security. Someone had given CO detailed information about their defenses. "The Nakamura brothers feeding him bad intel like we discussed?" Cade asked. The eldest brother nodded quickly. "We told him you were moving shipments through the Port District warehouse. Made it sound like a major operation. And instead he found an empty building. With just enough legitimate inventory to make it believable," Ronan added, "but nothing we couldn't afford to lose." So the double agent strategy was working, at least partially. But Seo was pushing harder than anticipated, testing boundaries, trying to provoke a response. "He wants me to retaliate," Cade said slowly. Wants me to strike back so he can justify all-out war. So what do we do? Cade thought about his mother in the hospital, fighting for her life. Thought about Amara, who'd somehow become the center of everything he cared about. Thought about the empire he'd built through blood and fear, the choices that had led him here. We give him exactly what he wants, Cade said finally, but not how he expects it. Ronan leaned forward. Explain. CO thinks I'm weak, distracted, too soft to fight back properly. Let's use that. Feed him more bad information through the Nakamuras. Make him think we're scrambling, disorganized, vulnerable. Cade traced a finger across the map. Then, when he commits to a major offensive, we hit him where it actually hurts. His money, Ronan said, catching on. The Han Consortium runs everything through that offshore account network, which we've been mapping for months. If we can freeze his assets, even temporarily, it cripples his ability to pay soldiers, buy weapons, maintain loyalty. It's risky. If it doesn't work, then we're no worse off than we are now. But if it does work, we end this without turning the streets into a war zone. Ronan studied him for a long moment. When did you become the strategic one? I've always been strategic, just usually about different things. They spent the next 4 hours planning. The Nakamura brothers would continue feeding Seo misinformation, escalating the apparent chaos within the Moriyama organization. Meanwhile, Cade's financial people would coordinate with their contacts in the banking world, preparing to lock down the Han Consortium's money the moment Seo made his move. It was elegant, relatively bloodless, and completely dependent on timing. One mistake, and the whole thing collapsed. Cade's phone rang. Amara. He answered immediately. Is she okay? She's awake, Amara said, voice thick with emotion. Still weak, can't talk much, but she's awake and asking for you. Relief crashed through him, so powerful he had to sit down. I'm on my way. He stood, grabbed his jacket. Ronan looked up. Your mother? Awake. I need to go. Cade, handle the details. I trust you. Ronan's expression shifted, something like surprise flickering across his face. Yeah, okay. Cade drove himself this time, breaking speed limits, running amber lights, not caring about traffic laws or safety. His mother was awake. She'd survived. He made it to St. Catherine's in 15 minutes, burst into her room to find Amara sitting beside the bed, holding Evelyn's hand. His mother turned her head slowly, saw him, smiled. Half her face didn't quite move right, stroke damage, probably temporary, but maybe not. But her eyes were clear, focused, unmistakably alive. There's my boy, she said, words slightly slurred. Cade crossed the room, kissed her forehead. You scared the hell out of me. Good. Need to keep you on your toes. Amara stood, giving them space, but Evelyn caught her wrist. Stay, dear, your family too. Amara's eyes widened. She looked at Cade, uncertain. He nodded. Sit, Evelyn insisted. Both of you. I want to look at you. They sat. Evelyn studied them with those sharp eyes that had always seen too much, understood too well. You're in love, she said flatly. Cade opened his mouth to deny it, then stopped. What was the point? His mother had always known him better than he knew himself. Yeah, he admitted. We are. About time. I was beginning to think you'd forgotten how. Evelyn's good hand squeezed Amara's. You'll be good for him. He needs someone who doesn't let him get away with his nonsense. Amara laughed, surprised. I do my best. As for you, Evelyn turned to Cade, expression serious despite the stroke damage. I know what you do. Have known for years. I'm old, not stupid. Cade felt like the floor had dropped away. Mom, let me finish. I know you think you're protecting me by keeping me separate from your business. And maybe you are, a little. But I also know my son. Know you're carrying weight that's crushing you. Know you think you're beyond saving. She paused, catching her breath. But looking at you two together, I see hope. See a future that's not just violence and loneliness. I don't know how to give you that future, Cade said quietly. I'm in too deep to just walk away. Then don't walk. Run. Take Amara, take whatever money you need, and run as far and fast as you can. I can't abandon the organization. People depend on me. People will survive without you. The question is whether you'll survive if you stay. Cade looked at Amara. She was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. I can't ask her to run with me. That's not fair. You're not asking, Evelyn said. I am. Amara, dear, would you go with him? If he left this life behind? Amara wiped her eyes. In a heartbeat. There. Decided. Now you just need the courage to actually do it. But Cade was already shaking his head. It's not that simple. If I run, Seo will hunt me down. And even if he doesn't, someone else will. There's no retirement in my line of work, Mom. Just death or prison. Or reinvention, Evelyn said. You're clever, Cade. Always have been. If you wanted out badly enough, you'd find a way. Maybe. But wanting out and actually getting out were two completely different things. His phone buzzed. Text from Ronan. Seo's making his move, mobilizing for a major hit. Need you at the office now. Cade stood. I have to go. Be careful, his mother said. Always am. But as he kissed her goodbye and headed for the door, Evelyn called out one more time. Cade, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose love over fear. Think about it. He didn't respond, couldn't, because deep down, he knew she was right. And that terrified him more than any war ever could. The office was pure chaos. Cade walked in to find his entire command structure assembled. Ronan, their head of security, their intelligence coordinator, representatives from each territory. Everyone talking over each other, tension thick enough to choke on. Report, Cade snapped. Ronan pulled up surveillance footage on the main screen. CO's gathered a force of about 40 men. They're staging at a warehouse on the east side, loading weapons and vehicles. Our source inside says they're planning to hit our primary operations center tonight. How good is the source? Solid. One of CO's low-level guys we flipped 6 months ago. Cade studied the footage. 40 men was a serious commitment, enough to overwhelm their defenses if the attack was coordinated properly. But it was also a risk for CO, pulling that many soldiers from other territories. He's going all in, Cade said, betting everything on this one strike. Which means if we stop him, we break his momentum, their security chief added. But if we don't, we won't have a choice about whether this becomes a war. It'll already be one. Cade moved to the desk, pulled up the financial tracking software his people had built. The Han Consortium's money moved through a complex web of shell corporations and offshore accounts. But they'd been mapping the network for months. 3 major holding accounts. Freeze those, and CO couldn't pay his soldiers or buy ammunition or maintain the infrastructure necessary for a sustained conflict. How fast can we lock down his money? Cade asked. Their financial coordinator, a thin woman named Sarah, with a talent for creative accounting, pulled up spreadsheets. If everything goes perfectly, 4 hours. If there are complications, could be days. We don't have days. Then we need everything to go perfectly. Cade made the call. Do it. Freeze every account you can reach. I want CO broke before his men realize they're not getting paid. Sarah nodded, already typing. Around the room, people mobilized, calling contacts, executing plans, transforming strategy into action. And the operations center? Ronan asked. If CO hits it tonight, let him. Everyone stopped. Ronan stared at Cade. Excuse me? Let him attack, but make sure there's nothing valuable there to take. Nobody important there to kill. Evacuate everyone, move the critical equipment, turn it into an empty shell. That makes us look weak. It makes us look smart. Why waste resources defending a location when we can just move the resources? Cade leaned forward. CO wants a fight, wants blood and fire, and the chance to prove he's stronger than us. But the real fight isn't about who has more guns. It's about who can sustain a war longer. And if we cut off his funding while avoiding unnecessary casualties on our side, we win without firing a shot. Slowly understanding dawned on Ronan's face. You're playing a different game entirely. I'm playing the only game that matters. Survival. They worked through the night, coordinating the evacuation, tracking Seo's movements, executing the financial attack. Cade stayed at his desk, making calls, approving decisions, holding the whole operation together through sheer force of will. Around 3 a.m., Sarah looked up from her laptop. We've frozen 2 of the 3 major accounts. The third has additional security protocols. Working on it. How much money did we lock down? Approximately $27 million. A collective exhale went through the room. 27 million was enough to cripple most operations, even one as large as the Han Consortium. Cade's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered anyway. Yeah. Cade Moriyama. Seo's voice smooth and cold. I have to admit I'm impressed. Freezing my accounts was clever. Unexpected. You were predictable. Was I? Because from where I'm standing, you've just declared war. You declared war when you started surveilling my house. I'm just responding appropriately. By attacking my finances instead of defending your territory. Interesting choice. Seo paused. But money can be unfrozen, Cade. Accounts can be recovered. What can't be recovered is family. Cade's blood turned to ice. What did you say? Your mother's at St. Catherine's Hospital, room 407. Very sick from what I hear. Tragic, really. And her caregiver, that lovely South African woman, she's there too, isn't she? Keeping vigil, making sure nothing happens to poor Evelyn. You touch either of them, and I'll burn your entire organization to the ground. I don't need to touch them, Cade. That's the beauty of it. All I have to do is make one phone call, and hospital security will find several pounds of cocaine hidden in your mother's room, planted by her caregiver, obviously. Poor Amara will be arrested, deported, and you'll never see her again. Your mother will lose the one person keeping her alive, and you'll have no one to blame but yourself. The room went silent. Everyone was listening now, watching Cade's face. Or, Seo continued, you unfreeze my accounts, withdraw your people from the Eastern Territories, and we all go back to our respective corners. Your choice. You have 1 hour. He hung up. Cade stood there, phone in hand, mind racing. Seo had backed him into a corner, trapped him between protecting the organization and protecting the people he loved. There was no good choice, only impossible ones. Cade, Ronan said quietly, what do you want to do? Cade looked around the room at his people, soldiers, accountants, strategists, all of them waiting for his decision. People who'd followed him for years, who trusted him to lead them through whatever came next. Then he thought about his mother, recovering from a stroke in a hospital bed. Thought about Amara, fierce and stubborn and brave, who'd chosen to love him despite everything. Thought about what his mother had said. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose love over fear. Unfreeze the accounts, Cade said. What? Ronan looked shocked. Cade, if we do that, unfreeze the accounts. Pull our people back from the Eastern Territories. Give Seo exactly what he wants. You're surrendering? I'm choosing. Cade met Ronan's eyes. For 11 years, I've chosen this organization over everything else. Over relationships, over happiness, over any kind of normal life. And where has it gotten me? Alone, empty, running an empire that will eventually kill me. So you're just giving up? No, I'm getting out. Cade straightened. Effective immediately, I'm stepping down. The organization is yours, Ronan. Run it however you want. Make deals with Seo, go to war with him, burn it all down. I don't care anymore. Ronan grabbed his arm. You can't just walk away. Watch me. Cade pulled free. I'm done. Done with the violence, the fear, the constant calculation. I'm choosing my mother. I'm choosing Amara. I'm choosing a life that doesn't end with a bullet in my head. They'll kill you anyway. The moment you're not useful, then I'll die free instead of caged. Cade grabbed his jacket. I'm sorry, Ronan. I know this isn't what you signed up for, but I can't do this anymore. He walked out. Behind him, the office exploded into arguments and chaos. But Cade didn't look back. He just kept walking, out of the building, into the parking garage, into his car. His phone was already ringing. He ignored it, drove to St. Catherine's Hospital, took the elevator to the 4th floor, walked into room 407, where his mother was sleeping and Amara was reading in the chair beside her bed. Amara looked up, saw his face, stood immediately. What happened? Everything, Cade said. And nothing, I don't know anymore. He told her. About Seo's threat, about the ultimatum, about the choice he'd made, about walking away from the only life he'd known for 11 years. Amara listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. So what now? She asked finally. I don't know. I've never not known. But right now, in this moment, I have no idea what happens next. Amara crossed the room, took his hands. Then we figure it out together. I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm offering. We figure it out together, Cade. Whatever comes next, We face it together." He pulled her close, held her tight. Outside the window, the city sprawled in all directions. Millions of lives intersecting, millions of stories unfolding in the dark. Somewhere out there, Seo Hanrik was celebrating his victory. Ronan was trying to hold the organization together. The empire Cade had built was probably already fracturing, power vacuums opening, rivals circling like sharks. But in this hospital room, holding the woman he loved while his mother slept peacefully, Cade felt something he hadn't felt in years. Freedom. It was terrifying, it was beautiful, and for the first time he was brave enough to choose it. Freedom lasted exactly 47 minutes. Cade was still in the hospital room, sitting on the edge of his mother's bed while Amara dozed in the chair, when his phone exploded with notifications. Texts, missed calls, voicemails, all from Ronan, each message more urgent than the last. The final text was just 2 words: "Call me." Cade stepped into the hallway, dialed. Ronan answered before the first ring finished. "Where are you?" Ronan demanded. "Hospital. What's wrong?" "What's wrong is that CO didn't accept your surrender. He's hitting us anyway." Cade's stomach dropped. "What?" "The operations center you evacuated? He burned it to the ground. Then he hit 2 of our gambling dens, a protection racket in Chinatown, and one of our legitimate businesses, that restaurant on 5th Street, the one your mother used to love." "Casualties?" 3 dead, 7 injured, and he's not stopping." Ronan's voice was ragged. "He's not interested in territory anymore, Cade. He wants blood, wants to make an example out of us so brutal that no one will ever challenge the Han Consortium again. I gave him what he wanted. The accounts are unfrozen. The territories are his. Apparently, that's not enough. He wants total destruction, wants the Moriyama name erased from this city's memory." Cade leaned against the wall, mind racing. He'd miscalculated, thought Seo was rational, motivated by profit and power. But some men didn't want victory. They wanted annihilation. "What do you need from me?" Cade asked quietly. "I need you to come back. The organization is fragmenting without you. Half our guys think you abandoned them. The other half are too scared to fight without your leadership. We're bleeding people by the hour." "I'm out, Ronan. I meant what I said. Then we're all dead, because without you we don't stand a chance." The line went silent. Cade could hear his own heartbeat, could feel the weight of 11 years pressing down on him. Every choice, every death, every compromise that had led him to this moment. "I'll think about it," he said finally. "Don't think too long. Seo's moving fast." Cade hung up, stared at his phone. Through the window to his mother's room, he could see Amara stirring, rubbing her eyes. She caught his gaze, frowned at whatever expression was on his face. He went back inside. "We need to talk." Amara stood immediately. "What happened?" He told her. About Seo's continued attacks, about Ronan's call, about the choice he was facing all over again. Walk away and let his people die, or go back and become the monster he'd been trying to escape. "What are you going to do?" Amara asked when he finished. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." She crossed her arms. "You're going back. I can see it in your eyes." "I don't want to." "But you will. Because despite everything, you still feel responsible for those people. Still think their survival depends on you." Cade ran a hand through his hair, exhausted. "If I don't go back, they'll be slaughtered. Ronan's good, but he's not a leader. Not like this. The organization will collapse, and everyone who stayed loyal will pay the price. And if you do go back, then I become exactly what I was trying to escape. The man who chooses violence over peace, power over love. The man who prioritizes an empire over the woman he loves." Amara was quiet for a long moment. "Can I tell you something?" "Always. When I first came here, I thought you were just another criminal. Rich, powerful, dangerous, someone to be wary of. But then I watched you with your mother, saw how gentle you were with her, how patient, how you'd sit with her for hours just talking about nothing." She stepped closer. "That's the real you, Cade. Not the syndicate boss, not the killer, the man who cares so much it terrifies him. That man can't save my people. No, but maybe he can find a way to end this without becoming the monster again." "How?" "I don't know, but I trust you to figure it out." Cade pulled her close, breathed in the scent of her hair. "I love you. You know that, right?" "I know. And if I go back, If I do what needs to be done to end this, I might not come back the same person. Then I'll love whoever you become. Amara pulled back, looked him in the eye. But don't go back because you think it's expected. Don't sacrifice yourself just because it's easier than finding another way. Go back because you actually believe you can make a difference. Otherwise, you're just feeding yourself to the same machine that's been eating you alive for 11 years. She was right. She was always right. Cade kissed her forehead, then stepped back. Stay with my mother. Don't leave the hospital. I'll have security posted outside the room. Where are you going? To end this, one way or another. Batsits. The drive to the office felt like driving toward his own execution. Cade's hands were steady on the wheel, but his mind was chaos. Images flashed through his head, his father dying in a spray of bullets, his mother's face when she'd learned the truth about his business, Amara crying in his kitchen at 3 a.m, all the moments that had led him here to this impossible choice. The office building loomed ahead, glass and steel reflecting the morning sun. Cade parked, took the elevator to the top floor, walked into a war room that looked like it had been hit by a hurricane. Ronan stood at the central table, surrounded by maps and photographs. He looked up when Cade entered, and relief flooded his expression. You came back. Don't celebrate yet. Cade moved to the table. Where's Seo now? Last report had him at his compound in the hills. He's consolidating, gathering his forces for another wave of attacks. How many men does he have? Maybe 60, 70, but they're well-armed, well-trained. This isn't just street thugs anymore. He's bringing in professionals. Cade studied the maps, the attack patterns, the strategic positioning. SEO was being systematic, methodical, taking out infrastructure first, then moving to personnel. Classic military strategy. He's trying to force us into a direct confrontation, Cade said. Wants us desperate enough to attack his compound, where he has every advantage. So what do? We don't give him what he wants. Cade pulled out his phone, started making calls. Get me eyes on his compound. I want to know how many guards, what kind of security systems, every entrance and exit, and find me someone on his payroll who's willing to talk. That could take days. Then we work fast. They worked. For 6 hours straight, Cade coordinated intelligence gathering, reached out to contacts, called in favors from people who owed him. Slowly, a picture emerged. Seo's compound was a fortress, high walls, electronic surveillance, armed guards at every entrance. But fortresses had weaknesses, blind spots, vulnerabilities that could be exploited by someone willing to take risks. Around 3 p.m., one of their intelligence people brought in a man Cade didn't recognize. Mid-30s, nervous energy, wearing a delivery uniform. This is Marcus, the intelligence coordinator said. He delivers groceries to Seo's compound twice a week. He's willing to help. For a price. Cade looked at Marcus. How much? 50,000, and a promise you won't kill me when this is over. Done. What can you tell me? Marcus pulled out his phone, showed them photographs he'd taken during deliveries. Security's tight, but they're sloppy with the domestic staff. They search us when we arrive, but they don't watch us while we're inside. I could probably get someone in with a delivery. How many people? 1, maybe 2 if they're small enough to hide in the supply boxes. Ronan shook his head. That's a suicide mission. Even if you get inside, you'd be outnumbered 30-1. I'm not sending an army, Cade said. Just one person. Me. Absolutely not. It's the only way. You said it yourself. Our people won't follow anyone else. If I'm going to end this, I need to do it personally. By walking into Seo's compound and doing what exactly? Asking him nicely to stop killing us? By making him an offer he can't refuse. What offer? Cade turned to face Ronan fully. Me for everyone else. I surrender myself, publicly transfer all assets and territories to him, and in exchange he leaves the organization alone. No more attacks, no more bloodshed. The room went silent. That's insane, Ronan said finally. He'll kill you the second you're in his custody. Probably, but at least the people who trusted me will survive. Cade, this is my decision, Ronan, not yours. Cade looked around the room at his people, soldiers, strategists, all of them staring at him with varying degrees of shock and respect. I built this organization. I made the choices that led us here, and if my death can save it, Then that's a price I'm willing to pay. Nobody argued. What could they say? This was always how it ended for men like him. Violence, sacrifice, a bloody exit from a bloody life. When? Ronan asked quietly. Tonight, before CO launches his next attack. Cade turned to Marcus. Can you get me in? Yeah, next delivery is scheduled for 6 p.m. Perfect. Make it happen. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. Cade drafted documents transferring his assets, wrote letters to his mother and Amara, made arrangements for their protection after he was gone. Every action felt final, like closing chapters in a book he'd never finish reading. Around 5, Ronan found him alone in his office. You don't have to do this, Ronan said. We both know I do. No. We could fight. We've fought worse odds before. And how many more people die while we fight? How much more blood gets spilled before someone finally wins? Cade shook his head. I'm tired of fighting, Ronan. Tired of the death, the fear, the constant grinding violence. If this is how it ends, at least it ends on my terms. This isn't ending it. This is giving up. Sometimes those are the same thing. Ronan grabbed his shoulder. You're my best friend, my brother. I'm not just going to let you walk into your own execution. You don't have a choice. Bullshit. There's always a choice. Cade met his eyes. Not this time. They stood there for a long moment, 11 years of friendship and loyalty hanging in the air between them. Then Ronan pulled him into a hard embrace. You stupid, self-sacrificing bastard, Ronan muttered. Takes one to know one. They broke apart. Cade grabbed his jacket, headed for the door. Cade, Ronan called. If you somehow survive this, I won't. But if you do, promise me you'll actually run. Take Amara, take your mother, and disappear. Build that life you were talking about. I promise. It was a lie. They both knew it. The delivery van smelled like vegetables and cardboard. Cade crouched in the back, wedged between crates of lettuce and boxes of imported pasta, while Marcus drove through the hills toward Seo's compound. His heart was steady, breathing controlled. This was familiar territory, the moments before violence, the calm that came from accepting death as a possible outcome. He'd walked into danger 100 times before. This was just one more. The van slowed, stopped. Voices outside, guards checking Marcus's credentials, scanning the delivery manifest. Cade held perfectly still, hand resting on the gun concealed at his waist. All clear, a guard called. Take it to the kitchen entrance. The van lurched forward. Through gaps in the crates, Cade could see high walls, security cameras, armed men patrolling in pairs. Everything Marcus had described, plus about a dozen details he'd missed. They parked. Marcus opened the back doors, started unloading boxes. When he reached Cade's hiding spot, he whispered, Kitchen entrance is 30 feet ahead. 2 guards, but they're lazy. Won't watch you if you look like you belong. Got it? Good luck, man. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the stupidest. Probably both. Cade climbed out, grabbed a box of supplies, walked toward the kitchen entrance like he'd done it 1,000 times. The guards barely glanced at him. Inside, the kitchen was industrial, stainless steel, and commercial appliances, staffed by people who moved with the efficient boredom of workers counting down to the end of their shift. Nobody questioned him. He set down the box, moved through the kitchen into a service hallway. From there, following the mental map he'd memorized, up a back staircase to the second floor where Seo's private offices were located. The compound was enormous, rooms branching off in every direction, guards stationed at strategic points, the whole place designed to intimidate and impress. Cade moved quickly but carefully, avoiding main corridors, sticking to the paths domestic staff would use. He was almost to Seo's office when someone grabbed his arm. Cade spun, hand going for his gun, then froze. Lucian Park stood there, Cade's oldest friend, his most trusted advisor, the man who'd been with him since the beginning, who'd helped him build the organization from nothing. What are you doing here? Lucian hissed. I could ask you the same thing. I work here now, have for the past 3 months. Lucien's expression was anguished. Cade, you need to leave. Right now. This is a trap. What are you talking about? Seo knew you'd come. He's been planning for this since the beginning. The attacks, the escalation, the threats against your family, all of it was designed to force you into exactly this situation. Cade's blood turned to ice. How does he know? Because I told him. Lucien's voice cracked. I'm sorry, Cade. I'm so fucking sorry, but I didn't have a choice. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Cade stumbled back, mind reeling. Lucien, his friend, the man he'd trusted with everything. How long? Cade demanded. 6 months. SEO approached me, said he had evidence of my gambling debts, said he'd expose me, destroy me, unless I fed him information about your operations. So you sold me out. I tried to give him useless intel at first, tried to protect you while protecting myself. But he's smart, Cade. He figured out I was lying, started threatening people I cared about, my sister, my mother. Lucien's hands were shaking. I had to choose between you and my family. And you chose them. Wouldn't you have done the same? The question hung in the air. Would he? If someone had threatened Amara or his mother, would Cade have betrayed everything to keep them safe? Yes. Absolutely yes. Which somehow made Lucien's betrayal hurt even worse. Where's Seo? Cade asked quietly. His office. But he's not alone. He has 15 men with him, all armed. You walk through that door, you're dead. Then I'm dead. Cade pulled free. Get out of my way, Lucien. Cade, please. Now. Lucien stepped aside, eyes glistening. For what it's worth, I never wanted this. Never wanted to hurt you. But you did anyway. That's all that matters. Cade walked past him, down the corridor to a set of ornate double doors. He could hear voices inside, Seo's smooth baritone, other men laughing, celebrating, probably. Victory was so close they could taste it. Cade kicked the doors open. The room went silent. Seo sat behind a massive desk, looking relaxed and amused. Around him, 15 guards raised their weapons, all pointed directly at Cade's head. Cade Moriyama, Seo said, smiling. Right on time. I knew you couldn't resist playing the hero. Cade raised his hands slowly. I came to make a deal. No, you came to die, but I appreciate the effort. Seo gestured to his men. Take his weapon. 2 guards moved forward, patted Cade down, removed his gun. They were thorough, professional. Found the knife in his boot, the backup piece at his ankle, even the razor blade hidden in his belt. Strip him, Seo ordered. They forced Cade out of his jacket, his shirt, his pants, left him standing in the middle of the office in just his underwear, completely vulnerable. Seo stood, walked around the desk. Do you know what I hate most about men like you, Cade? You think you're noble. Think your code of honor makes you different from the rest of us. But we're all the same, all killers and thieves wearing different masks. I never claimed to be noble. No, but you judged me anyway. Looked down on my methods, my ambition, called me reckless, uncontrolled. Seo circled him like a predator. But who's standing here now? Who won? You did. Congratulations. Now what? Now I make an example of you. Something so brutal, so complete, that no one will ever challenge me again. Seo pulled out his phone, started recording. Everyone watching this, remember what happens when you oppose the Han Consortium. Remember Cade Moriyama, the great crime lord who thought he could walk away. One of the guards hit Cade across the face. Pain exploded through his jaw, blood filling his mouth. Another blow, this one to his stomach. He doubled over, gasping. They beat him methodically, professionally, breaking ribs, splitting skin, turning his body into a canvas of pain. Cade tried to stay silent, refused to give them the satisfaction of hearing him scream, but eventually he did scream. Everyone did. Enough, Seo said finally. The beating stopped. Cade collapsed to the floor, vision blurring, tasting copper and salt. Through the haze, he could see Seo's face, looking down at him with something like pity. You were a worthy opponent, Cade, truly, but this world has no room for men who choose love over power. Seo crouched beside him. I'm going to kill your caregiver next. That pretty South African woman. Then your mother. I want you to die knowing everyone you cared about will follow you. Rage flooded through Cade, momentarily overwhelming the pain. He lunged, hands reaching for Seo's throat. Guards tackled him, slammed him back to the floor. More blows rained down. Someone kicked his head, and the world went sideways. Take him to the basement, Seo ordered. I'll deal with him later. First, I have some hospital visits to make. No. They dragged Cade from the room, downstairs that scraped against his bare skin, into a concrete basement that smelled like mold and old blood. Threw him into a cell, locked the door. Cade lay on the cold floor, body screaming, mind racing. He'd failed his people, failed his mother, failed Amara. And now they were all going to die because of his arrogance. He forced himself to sit up, assess the damage. Broken ribs, definitely. Possible internal bleeding. His left eye was swelling shut, and at least 2 teeth felt loose. But he was alive. For now. The cell was bare. Stone walls, metal door, no windows. No obvious way out. But there had to be something, some weakness he could exploit. Cade crawled to the door, examined the lock. Old, mechanical, probably pickable if he had tools, which he didn't. He sat back, thinking. His clothes were upstairs. His weapons were gone. He was locked in a basement cell in enemy territory, beaten half to death, with no obvious means of escape. This was it. The end he'd always known was coming, except footsteps on the stairs. The door opened. Lucien stepped inside, carrying Cade's clothes. "What are you doing?" Cade rasped. "Trying to fix the worst mistake of my life." Lucien tossed the clothes to him. "Get dressed. We're leaving." "Why would you help me now?" "Because I heard what Seo said, about killing Amara and your mother, and I realized I'd been lying to myself. Telling myself I was just protecting my family, that I didn't have a choice." Lucien's voice was thick with self-loathing. "But I did have a choice. I could have come to you, told you the truth, let you help me. Instead, I betrayed the only person who ever really gave a damn about me. So this is redemption. This is me trying not to be completely worthless." Lucien pulled out a gun, Cade's gun, handed it over. "There are 3 guards between us and the garage. After that, you're on your own." Cade dressed quickly, ignoring the agony from his broken ribs. "What about your family?" "I've already moved them. They're safe, somewhere Seo can't reach them. This was always going to end with me choosing a side. Might as well be the right one." They moved through the basement, up the stairs. The first guard didn't see them coming. Cade shot him twice, center mass, caught his body before it could make noise. The second guard was more alert. He got off one shot that went wide before Lucien put him down. Alarms started blaring. "Garage now!" Lucien shouted. They ran. Through corridors, past startled staff, guards mobilizing from every direction. Cade fired behind them, not aiming, just keeping pursuers back. His ribs screamed with every step, but adrenaline overrode the pain. The garage loomed ahead. They burst through, found Marcus's delivery van still parked there. Cade jumped in the driver's seat while Lucien provided covering fire. "Get in," Cade yelled. "No. Someone has to hold them off or they'll just follow you." Lucien fired again, dropped 2 guards. "Go save Amara. Save your mother. That's all that matters now." "Lucien, go!" Cade hit the gas. The van lurched forward, tires squealing. In the rearview mirror, he saw Lucien standing in the garage entrance, firing methodically at the men pouring in from every direction. Then the mirror exploded from a bullet, and Cade lost sight of him. He drove like the world was ending, down the hills, through residential streets, running every red light. His phone was still upstairs somewhere, so he couldn't call ahead, couldn't warn anyone. Just had to drive and pray he wasn't too late. St. Catherine's Hospital rose ahead. Cade abandoned the van in the emergency room parking lot, ran inside. His appearance, half-dressed, covered in blood, carrying a gun, caused instant panic. Security guards moved to intercept him. "4th floor," Cade gasped. "Room 407. There's going to be an attack. Sir, you need to calm down." Cade shoved past them, hit the stairwell, took the stairs 3 at a time despite his broken ribs. 4th floor, down the corridor, room 407. The door was open. Cade's heart stopped. He ran inside to find the room empty. His mother's bed stripped, medical equipment disconnected, no Amara, no guards, nothing. A nurse walked by. Cade grabbed her arm. "The patient in this room. Where is she?" "Sir, I can't. Where is she?" "She was transferred to ICU an hour ago. Some kind of complication." Cade was already running. ICU was on the 6th floor. He took the elevator this time, couldn't handle more stairs. The doors opened to a secured ward, locked entry, nurses stationed directly ahead. "Evelyn Moriyama," he demanded. "Where is she?" The nurse looked at him, bloody, desperate, armed. and must have decided cooperation was safer than resistance. Room 612. But she's in critical condition. You can't. Room 612. Cade ran, burst through the door. His mother lay in the bed, unconscious, surrounded by even more machines than before. Amara sat beside her, head down, shoulders shaking. She looked up when Cade entered. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She had another stroke, Amara said, voice barely audible. Massive this time. The doctors say there's nothing more they can do. Cade moved to the bed, took his mother's hand. It was cold, limp. The monitors showed her heartbeat weakening, blood pressure dropping. Mom, he whispered. Mom, I'm here. I'm so sorry. No response, just the steady, slowing beep of the heart monitor. Amara stood, wrapped her arms around him from behind. I thought you were dead. Ronan called, said you'd gone to Seo's compound. I know, I'm sorry. What happened? I'll explain later. Right now I just need to... The heart monitor flatlined. The sound cut through everything, a single, sustained tone that meant the worst had happened. Nurses rushed in, started CPR, injected medications. They worked for 15 minutes while Cade and Amara stood frozen in the corner, watching helplessly. Finally, the doctor looked up. I'm sorry, there's nothing more we can do. Time of death, 7:43 p.m. The room went silent except for Cade's ragged breathing. His mother was gone. The woman who'd raised him, protected him, loved him, despite everything he'd become, gone. And it was his fault. All of it. Sir, one of the nurses said gently, we need to give you some time, but we'll need to... Get out, Cade said quietly. Sir? Get out! They left. Cade collapsed into the chair beside his mother's bed, still holding her hand. Amara knelt beside him, her own tears falling silent and constant. I killed her, Cade said. The stress, the danger I brought into her life. I killed my own mother. No, she was sick, Cade. This was always... Don't try to make this better. There's no making this better. They sat in silence while the machines slowly went quiet, one by one. Outside the window, the city continued its relentless motion. Cars, people, lives intersecting and diverging in patterns too complex to predict. Cade's phone, he'd grabbed it from the ICU nurse's station, buzzed. Text from Ronan. Lucien's dead. Died holding off Seo's men so you could escape. I'm sorry, Cade. Another death. Another person who'd sacrificed themselves because of choices Cade had made. How many more before this ended? We should go, Amara said eventually. Seo knows where we are. He could send men any moment. Let him. I don't care anymore. Cade, what's the point, Amara? I tried to walk away and my mother died. I tried to fight back and my best friend died. Everything I touch turns to ash. Everyone I love ends up in the ground. Amara grabbed his face, forced him to look at her. Stop. I know you're hurting. I know this feels impossible, but you don't get to give up. Not now. Not when I'm still here, still fighting, still choosing you despite everything. You should run. Get as far from me as possible before what? Before you hurt me too? I'm already hurt, Cade. Losing your mother hurts. Watching you suffer hurts. But I'm not leaving. You don't get to push me away just because you're scared. I'm not scared. I'm realistic. Look at what's happened in the last 24 hours. My organization's collapsing. My oldest friend betrayed me. My mother's dead. I have nothing left to offer you except more pain. Then give me that. Give me the pain, the fear, the impossible choices. Give me all of it, and we'll figure it out together. Amara's eyes blazed. But don't you dare quit on me now. Don't you dare let Seo win by making you believe you're not worth fighting for. Cade stared at her, this fierce, stubborn woman who refused to give up on him even when he'd given up on himself. Maybe she was right. Maybe there was still something worth fighting for. But first, he needed to end this, once and for all. Okay, he said finally. We fight back, but we do it my way. What's your way? We burn it all down. The organization, the territories, everything I built. We take away everything CO wants, make it worthless, and then we disappear. That's insane. Probably. But it's the only move he won't see coming. Amara studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, let's burn it down. Cade stood, kissed his mother's forehead one last time. I'm sorry, Mom, for all of it. But I promise, I'll make this right. I'll become the man you wanted me to be, even if it kills me. He walked out of the hospital room holding Amar's hand, leaving behind the woman who'd believed in him when no one else would. Behind them, the monitors stood silent. Ahead, the war was just beginning. The first call Cade made was to Ronan. They sat in Amar's car in the hospital parking lot, engine running, headlights cutting through the darkness. Cade's broken ribs screamed with every breath, but he pushed the pain down, compartmentalized it. Pain was just information. Right now he needed clarity. Ronan answered on the second ring. Jesus Christ, Cade, I thought you were dead. Not yet. Where are you? Safe house in the warehouse district. Most of our remaining people are here. We're trying to regroup, but it's bad. SEO's hit 6 more locations in the last 2 hours. We've lost at least half our operation. Good. Silence on the other end. What? I said good. Let him take it all. Let him think he's won. Cade, what the hell are you talking about? How much liquid cash can you pull together in the next 3 hours? Maybe 2 million if I drain everything? Why? Pull it. Every dollar we have access to. Then I want you to contact every family we've done business with. Nakamura, Chen, Rodriguez, all of them. Tell them the Moriyama syndicate is dissolving, effective immediately. You want me to announce we're surrendering? I want you to announce we're burning it down. Every territory, every operation, every asset. We're liquidating all of it and distributing the proceeds to our people as severance. Anyone who wants out gets paid and walks away clean. Ronan's breathing was audible through the phone. That's suicide. We'll have nothing left to fight with. Exactly. Seo wants my empire. I'm going to make sure there's no empire left to take. And then what? Then I kill him. The words hung in the air, cold and final. This is about your mother, Ronan said quietly. About losing her. You're not thinking straight. I'm thinking straighter than I have in years. Seo made this personal the moment he threatened Amara. He made it unforgivable when his escalation killed my mother. So yes, this is personal. This is me accepting that I can't win by playing his game. I have to change the rules entirely. By destroying everything we built. By destroying everything I built. You didn't sign up for this, Ronan. None of our people did. They followed me because I promised them protection and profit. I can't deliver either anymore, so I'm giving them a choice. Take the money and run, or stay and die with me. You know what they'll choose. I'm hoping they choose to run. I'm hoping I've trained them well enough to recognize a lost cause. Cade closed his eyes, exhaustion pulling at him. But if they stay, if they choose to fight beside me, then we go out making sure Seo understands what it costs to destroy a family. Ronan was quiet for a long moment. Your mother would hate this plan. My mother's dead because I wasn't ruthless enough when it mattered. I won't make that mistake again. When do you need the cash? 3 hours. And Ronan, if this goes wrong, if I don't make it back, don't start saying goodbyes. You've survived worse than this. Have I? Cade looked at Amara, who was watching him with dark, worried eyes. I don't think I have. He hung up. Amara reached over, took his hand. Are you sure about this? She asked. No, but I'm doing it anyway. What do you need from me? I need you to disappear. Right now. Tonight. I'll give you enough money to get your sister the best medical care in the world. Enough to never have to work again. Just get on a plane and don't look back. Amar's jaw set. We've had this conversation already. I'm not leaving. Amara, no. You don't get to protect me by pushing me away. We're past that. She started the car, pulled out of the parking lot. Where are we going? You're going to a hotel, somewhere safe where... Where are we going, Cade? He looked at her, this woman who'd somehow become his anchor, his reason for wanting to be better. She was terrified. He could see it in the tremor of her hands on the wheel, the tightness around her eyes. But she wasn't running, wasn't leaving him to face this alone. The warehouse district, Cade said finally. We're meeting Ronan. Amara nodded, turned onto the highway. They drove in silence, watching the city blur past. Cade's mind raced through scenarios, possibilities, the 1,000 ways this could go catastrophically wrong. His phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. Your mother's funeral. I'll be sending flowers. SHCO. Taunting him. rubbing salt in wounds still raw and bleeding. Cade deleted the message, then typed a response. Don't bother. I'm coming to visit you instead. Tonight. The response came immediately. I'll be waiting. Amara glanced at him. What was that? A promise. Cade showed her the messages. CO thinks he's broken me. Thinks I'm going to hide and lick my wounds while he consolidates power. He's wrong. What are you going to do? End this, one way or another. The warehouse district loomed ahead. Abandoned industrial buildings, rusted metal, the smell of oil and decay. Ronan's safe house was a converted factory, 3 stories of concrete and steel that could withstand a small army. Inside, chaos reigned. Men and women packed belongings, cleaned weapons, argued in tight clusters. Everyone looked scared, desperate, like soldiers realizing the war was already lost. Ronan met them at the entrance. His eyes went to Cade's injuries, the swollen eye, the way he moved to protect his ribs, and his expression hardened. You look like hell. Feel worse. You get the money? 2.3 million. It's in the truck outside. Ronan led them through the warehouse to a makeshift office. I've contacted the families. Most are willing to meet. The Nakamuras especially. They want to help after you cleared their debts. Good. We'll need their support to pull this off. Pull what off exactly? You said you're liquidating the organization, but you haven't explained the actual plan. Cade moved to a map of the city spread across the desk. CO's compound is a fortress. Attacking it directly would be suicide. But fortresses require supplies, staffing, maintenance, all of which costs money that flows through specific channels. You want to cut off his funding? We already tried that. We froze his accounts temporarily. This time I'm going to burn the entire financial network. Every shell corporation, every offshore account, every legitimate business he uses to launder money. I'm going to expose it all to federal authorities in a way that can't be ignored or covered up. Ronan stared at him. That's insane. You'd be inviting federal investigation into all of us. The FBI, IRS, everyone would come crashing down. On an organization that no longer exists. On assets we've already liquidated and distributed. By the time they sort through the wreckage, everyone who worked for me will be gone. Cade traced lines on the map. Except me. I'll make sure they know exactly who to hold responsible. You're going to prison. Or I'm going to die fighting Seo. Either way, the empire ends tonight. Amara had been quiet, listening. Now she stepped forward. What about the people who depend on your protection? The families who paid for safety? The businesses operating under your umbrella? They'll have to find new arrangements. I can't protect anyone anymore. All I can do is make sure Seo can't hurt them either. By destroying him. By destroying everything. Him, me, the whole rotten system. Cade looked around the room. I spent 11 years building this organization. Thought I was creating something sustainable, something that could outlast me. But it was all built on violence and fear, and that kind of foundation always crumbles eventually. Ronan grabbed his arm. This is grief talking. You just lost your mother, lost Lucian. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in years. This life, what we've been doing, it only ends one way, prison or death. I'm just choosing which one on my own terms. And what about her? Ronan gestured to Amara. What about the woman you claim to love? You're going to drag her down with you? I'm not dragging anyone. I told her to leave. She refused. Because she loves you, you idiot. Because she's hoping you'll choose her over this suicide mission. Cade looked at Amara. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears, but her expression was resolute. Is that what you want? For me to walk away? Let Seo win? I want you alive, Amara said. But I know you, Cade. I know you can't live with yourself if you don't finish this. So I'm not asking you to choose between me and revenge. I'm just asking you to let me stand beside you while you do what you need to do. You could die. We're all going to die eventually. At least this way, I'll die knowing I didn't abandon someone I love when they needed me most. Ronan threw up his hands. You're both insane. Probably. Cade turned back to the map. Here's what we need. First, financial records. Everything we have on CO's network. Second, contacts at the FBI who can be trusted to act on solid evidence. Third, a distraction big enough to pull CO's attention while we work. I can handle the financial records, Ronan said reluctantly. We've been tracking his money for months. And I know an FBI agent who owes me. But what kind of distraction are you talking about? The kind that makes him think he's finally won, makes him vulnerable. Over the next 2 hours, they planned. Cade drafted a detailed financial report documenting the Han Consortium's operations, shell companies, money laundering schemes, connections to legitimate businesses. Everything the FBI would need to build a case that couldn't be ignored. Meanwhile, Ronan coordinated with the other families. The Nakamuras agreed to provide manpower. The Chen family offered vehicles and weapons. Even the Rodriguez family, who'd stayed neutral for years, pledged support, not because they loved Cade, because they feared what Seo would become if left unchecked. Around midnight, everything was ready. The money was distributed to Cade's people. Most took it and disappeared immediately. A few stayed, soldiers who'd been with him from the beginning, who'd seen too much to walk away now. 12 men total, plus Ronan and Amara, against Seo's 60. Cade addressed them in the warehouse, standing on a loading dock so everyone could see him. His eye was swollen shut, his ribs screamed with every breath, and he was pretty sure he was running a fever from internal injuries. But he stood straight, projected strength he didn't feel. "I'm not going to lie to you," he said. "What we're about to do is probably going to get us all killed. Seo has more men, better weapons, and the advantage of defending his own territory. By every logical measure, we should lose." Silence. Everyone watching, waiting. "But we're not fighting to win," Cade continued. "We're fighting to make sure Seo loses. Fighting to burn down the empire he's trying to build on our graves. And maybe, just maybe, we're fighting to prove that honor and loyalty mean something in a world that's forgotten both." One of the soldiers, a younger guy named Marcus, who joined the organization 2 years ago, spoke up. "What happens if we survive? Then you take your money and run. Build a life somewhere far from here. Forget you ever knew me. And if we don't survive? Then at least we die standing up instead of running away." Marcus nodded slowly. Around him, others did the same. Not enthusiasm. Nobody was enthusiastic about dying, but acceptance. The grim understanding that some fights were worth having even when you knew you'd lose. "One more thing," Cade said. "I'm done giving orders. I'm done being your boss. Anyone who comes tonight does it as an equal. We fight together or we don't fight at all." Ronan stepped forward. "We fight together." The others echoed it, voices building. Cade felt something in his chest crack. Gratitude, maybe. Or the last remnants of hope. They loaded into vehicles. 6 cars, 2 or 3 people each, armed with whatever weapons they could gather. Cade rode with Amara and Ronan, sitting in the back seat because his ribs couldn't handle driving. "You should have the FBI ready to move," Cade said to Ronan. "The moment we confirm Seo's location, send them everything. Make sure they can't ignore it." "Already done. My contact is standing by." "Good." They drove through empty streets, the city sleeping around them. Past businesses Cade had protected, neighborhoods he'd controlled, the physical evidence of 11 years of work, all of it about to be erased, one way or another. Amar's hand found his in the darkness. "I'm scared." "Me too." "But not enough to stop." "No, not enough to stop." The hills rose ahead, dotted with expensive homes belonging to people who'd never worry about money or safety. Seo's compound sat at the peak, lit up like a fortress. Cade could see guards patrolling, security cameras tracking every approach. They parked half a mile away, moved the rest of the distance on foot. Cade's ribs screamed in protest, but he gritted his teeth and kept moving. Behind him, 12 men and 1 woman followed, all of them knowing this might be the last walk they ever took. The compound's outer wall loomed ahead, 20 feet of reinforced concrete topped with cameras and motion sensors. Impenetrable by conventional means. Cade pulled out his phone, dialed a number he'd memorized earlier. Marcus, the real Marcus, the delivery driver who'd helped him before, answered immediately. "Yeah? You still have access to the compound? They haven't changed my credentials yet. Why?" "Because I need you to open the service entrance in exactly 10 minutes. Can you do that?" Hesitation. "They'll kill me if they find out." "I'm paying you $100,000 to do it. Enough to disappear for a long time. Make it 200. Done. 10 minutes. Cade hung up, looked at his people. "Service entrance opens in 10 minutes. We go in fast, hit hard, find Seo before his men can organize. Questions?" Yeah, one of the soldiers said. What do we do with the civilians, staff who aren't involved? Let them go. This isn't about hurting innocent people. It's about Seo. Exactly 10 minutes later, the service entrance clicked open. No alarms, no guards. Marcus had come through. They moved inside, splitting into 3 groups. Ronan took 4 men and headed for Seo's security center to disable cameras and communications. The remaining soldiers spread out to secure exits and prevent reinforcements. Cade and Amara went straight for Seo's office. The compound was eerily quiet. Most of the guards were apparently stationed outside, expecting threats from beyond the walls. Nobody had anticipated an attack from within. They reached the 2nd floor. Cade recognized the corridor from his previous visit. The ornate doors, the expensive art, the whole theatrical display of wealth and power. He kicked the doors open for the 2nd time that night. Seo sat behind his desk, flanked by 4 bodyguards. But instead of surprise, his expression showed satisfaction. Cade, I was beginning to think you wouldn't show. Disappointed? Relieved. I'd hate to kill you without seeing your face one last time. Seo gestured to his guards, but I'm afraid you've walked into another trap. My men have already surrounded your people. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and out of options. Am I? Cade pulled out his phone, showed Seo the screen. Check your bank accounts. Seo's expression flickered. He pulled out his own phone, tapped through screens. Then his face went white. What did you do? Sent every scrap of evidence about your financial operations to the FBI. By now, federal agents are freezing every account you have. Every shell corporation, every offshore holding, everything. You're broke, Seo, and within 24 hours, you'll be in federal custody. You're lying. Call your accountant. Ask him yourself. Seo did. The conversation lasted 30 seconds before he threw the phone across the room. You destroyed yourself along with me. The FBI will come for you too. I'm counting on it. But there's a difference between us. I've already distributed all my assets. There's nothing left for them to seize. You, on the other hand, you've been so busy building your empire that you forgot to have an exit strategy. Seo's hands clenched into fists. You stupid, self-destructive bastard. You've ruined everything. That was the point. One of Seo's guards raised his weapon. Cade was faster, pulled his gun, shot the man before he could fire. The others reacted, but Amara had drawn her own weapon, covering them. In the chaos, Cade moved forward, grabbed Seo by the collar, slammed him against the desk. My mother died because of you. My best friend died because of you. You made this personal, and now you're going to pay for it. So kill me. Prove you're the monster everyone says you are. Cade pressed the gun to Seo's forehead. His finger tightened on the trigger. One squeeze, and it would all be over. Revenge, justice, the end of everything. But he hesitated. Not because he felt mercy, because he heard his mother's voice in his head. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose love over fear. Killing Seo would be fear, would be feeding the same cycle of violence that had consumed his entire adult life. Choosing love meant walking away, meant letting the law handle it, meant trusting that justice could exist outside revenge. Cade lowered the gun. No, he said, I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to let you live with the consequences of your choices. Let you sit in a federal prison for the next 30 years, knowing you lost everything to a man you thought was weak. He stepped back. Seo slumped against the desk, defeated. Gunfire erupted from somewhere below, Ronan's team engaging Seo's reinforcements. Amar grabbed Cade's arm. We need to go. They ran, back through corridors now swarming with armed guards, downstairs, trading shots with men who appeared from every direction. Cade's ribs screamed, his vision blurred from exhaustion and pain, but he kept moving. They reached the main floor to find Ronan and the others pinned down behind overturned furniture. Bullets tore through the air, punching holes in walls, shattering glass. FBI's 5 minutes out, Ronan shouted over the noise. We just need to hold. 5 minutes felt like forever. Cade took position beside a marble column, returned fire methodically. Beside him, Amara was completely focused, every shot deliberate. One of their soldiers went down, clutching his leg. Another took a bullet to the shoulder but kept fighting. The front doors exploded inward. More of Seo's men, at least 20 of them, pouring in from outside positions. They were surrounded, outgunned, dying. And then sirens cut through the night. Red and blue lights flooded the compound. The FBI had arrived early, brought half the bureau with them based on the number of vehicles. Federal agents, drop your weapons! CO's men hesitated, caught between their orders and the reality of federal prosecution. Most of them dropped their guns immediately, hands raised. A few kept fighting. The FBI didn't hesitate, returned fire with overwhelming force. Within minutes, it was over. Cade lowered his weapon, raised his hands. Amara did the same. Around them, FBI agents swarmed, securing the scene, arresting everyone in sight. An agent approached Cade. Cade Moriyama? That's me. You're under arrest for racketeering, money laundering, and about 30 other charges. You have the right to remain silent. I know my rights. Just get these people medical attention first. Cade gestured to the wounded. They were just following orders. My orders. The agent cuffed him anyway. Tell it to the judge. They led him outside where a dozen federal vehicles had formed a perimeter. Cade saw Seo being dragged out in cuffs, saw Ronan and the others being processed, saw Amara being questioned by agents who clearly weren't sure what to do with her. His phone buzzed one last time before an agent confiscated it. Text from an unknown number. Your mother would be proud. You chose right. L. Lucien. Somehow, impossibly, still alive. Cade smiled despite everything. Maybe some betrayals could be forgiven after all. They pushed him into a federal vehicle. Through the window, he watched Amara arguing with agents, watched her pull free and run toward his car. An agent tried to stop her, but she was faster, yanked open the door, leaned in. I love you, she said, voice breaking. I'm going to wait for you. However long it takes, I'm going to wait. Don't, Cade said. Live your life, save your sister. Forget you ever knew me. Not a chance. She kissed him hard, desperate, a promise sealed with salt and fury. I'll be right here when you get out. I promise. The agent pulled her back, closed the door. The vehicle pulled away, taking Cade toward whatever future waited. Prison, trial, years locked away from everyone and everything he'd ever known. But as the compound disappeared behind them, as sirens wailed and the city spread out in all directions, Cade felt something unexpected. Peace. He'd ended it. Burned down the empire, stopped CO, chosen love over violence when it mattered most. His mother would have been proud. And for the first time in 11 years, that was enough. The vehicle drove into the night, carrying him toward consequences he'd earned and a future he couldn't predict. Behind them, the compound burned, not literally, but metaphorically. Everything Cade had built, everything he'd been, reduced to ashes in memory. Ahead through the windshield, dawn was just beginning to break. Pink and gold spreading across the horizon, washing away the darkness. A new day, a new beginning. Whatever came next, Cade would face it knowing he'd finally chosen right. The federal holding cell smelled like disinfectant and despair. Cade sat on a metal bench, wrists still bearing the red marks from handcuffs, staring at concrete walls that had absorbed the fear and rage of 1,000 men before him. His broken ribs throbbed with every breath. His left eye had swollen completely shut. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the weight pressing down on his chest. His mother was dead. Lucien was gone. The empire he'd spent 11 years building had been reduced to evidence bags and federal indictments. And somewhere outside these walls, Amara was waiting. That thought should have comforted him. Instead, it made everything worse. She deserved better than a man facing 30 years in federal prison. Deserved better than loving someone who'd chosen violence so many times that redemption felt like a cruel joke. The cell door opened. A federal agent stepped in, mid-40s, tired eyes, wearing a suit that had seen better days. He carried a file folder thick enough to be Cade's entire life condensed into paper. Cade Moriyama, the agent said, sitting across from him. I'm Special Agent David Chen. We need to talk. I want a lawyer. You'll get one. But first, I want you to understand your situation. Chen opened the folder, started laying out photographs. Crime scenes, surveillance images, financial records. We've been building a case against the Han Consortium for 18 months. You just handed us everything we needed to take down Seo Hanrik and his entire organization. That's worth something. What's it worth? Depends on what else you give us. Names, connections, details about other syndicates operating in the city. Full cooperation could reduce your sentence significantly. Cade looked at the photographs. Recognized faces, people he'd done business with, allies who'd trusted him, enemies who'd feared him. One phone call, and he could destroy dozens of lives, save himself years in prison. No, he said. Chen's eyebrows rose. No? I'm not cooperating. I'm not giving you anyone else. You want me? You've got me. Everyone else is off limits. That's incredibly stupid. Probably, but I spent 11 years building an organization based on loyalty. I'm not going to destroy that in my last act just to save myself. Even if it means dying in prison? Even then. Chen studied him for a long moment, then gathered the photographs. You're either the most honorable criminal I've ever met, or the most idiotic. Haven't decided which yet. Can I ask you something? Cade leaned forward despite the pain in his ribs. The woman who was with me at CO's compound, Amara Vale, is she being charged? She's being questioned. So far, evidence suggests she was an innocent employee caught in your world. Unless we find something that changes that narrative, she'll likely be released. Relief flooded through Cade, so powerful it made him dizzy. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank the fact that she's smart enough to have kept her hands clean. Chen stood. Your arraignment's tomorrow morning. Get some sleep. You're going to need it. He left. Cade lay down on the bench, staring at the ceiling. Sleep felt impossible, but exhaustion pulled at him anyway, dragging him under. He dreamed of his mother's garden. Tomatoes growing wild, basil spreading between the plants, everything green and alive. His mother stood among the vegetables, wearing the dress she'd loved, smiling the way she used to before illness had stolen her strength. You did good, sweetheart, she said in the dream. You chose right when it mattered. I destroyed everything. You ended a cycle. That's not destruction, that's transformation. Cade woke to fluorescent lights and the clang of metal doors. Morning had arrived, bringing with it the machinery of justice. The arraignment was a circus. Media packed the courtroom, reporters, cameras, spectators who'd followed the Moriyama syndicate's fall with the same enthusiasm they'd give a sporting event. Cade was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed, flanked by federal marshals who looked ready to shoot him if he so much as sneezed wrong. The charges read like the novel. Racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy, weapons trafficking, obstruction of justice. 37 counts total, each one carrying years of prison time. How do you plead? The judge asked. Cade's court-appointed lawyer, a young woman named Sarah who looked fresh out of law school, whispered urgently in his ear. Say not guilty. We can negotiate. Guilty, Cade said clearly. To all charges. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged her gavel, calling for order. Sarah grabbed his arm, hissing, What are you doing? You just guaranteed maximum sentencing. I know what I'm doing. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you just threw away any chance of, I'm guilty, Cade interrupted, speaking loud enough for the entire courtroom to hear. I ran a criminal organization for 11 years. I hurt people, broke laws, chose power over decency more times than I can count. I'm not going to stand here and pretend otherwise. I'm not going to waste this court's time with a trial everyone knows the outcome of. The judge looked at him over her glasses. Mr. Moriyama, I strongly advise you to reconsider. A guilty plea to all charges is the truth, Your Honor. And for once in my life, I'd like to face the truth instead of running from it. Silence settled over the courtroom. The judge exchanged glances with the prosecutor, then nodded slowly. Very well. Given your plea, I'm remanding you to federal custody pending sentencing. That hearing will take place in 30 days. She banged the gavel. We're adjourned. They led Cade out through a side door to avoid the media frenzy. In the corridor, he saw Amara being escorted by a different set of agents. Their eyes met for a brief second, hers filled with tears, his trying to communicate everything he couldn't say out loud. Then she was gone, disappeared around a corner, and Cade was being loaded into a transport van heading for the Federal Detention Center. The facility was everything he'd expected. Concrete and steel, the constant noise of men locked in cages, the smell of industrial cleaner trying and failing to mask desperation. They processed him, fingerprints, photographs, medical examination that documented every injury, every scar, every mark of violence his body carried. Then they put him in general population. The first few days were the hardest. Other inmates tested him, trying to establish hierarchy, seeing if the famous Cade Moriyama was as dangerous behind bars as he'd been on the streets. A few challenges turned physical. Cade's broken ribs screamed in protest, but he fought anyway, because showing weakness in prison was a death sentence. After a week, they mostly left him alone. Word spread that he wasn't interested in running anything, wasn't trying to build power. He was just serving his time, counting down days until sentencing. Ronan visited on day 9. They sat across from each other in the visitation room, separated by bulletproof glass, talking through phones that probably recorded every word. "You look terrible," Ronan said. "Prison doesn't have great spa services." "Your ribs healing?" "Slowly." Cade shifted, trying to find a position that didn't hurt. "How's everyone else?" "Most took the money and disappeared. A few got picked up by the FBI, but with you pleading guilty, the prosecutor doesn't seem interested in pursuing them." Ronan paused. "Theo's singing like a canary, giving up everyone he's ever worked with. He's going to spend the rest of his life in protective custody." "Good. Let him rot." The Nakamura family sent a message. "They're grateful for what you did. Said if you need anything, I need them to forget I exist, that's all." Ronan nodded slowly. "Lucien's alive, by the way. He made it out before the FBI arrived, disappeared. Nobody's seen him since." The news hit Cade harder than expected. Lucien had survived, had escaped the consequences of his betrayal and Cade's crusade both. Maybe that was justice too, in its own twisted way. "And Amara?" Cade asked quietly. "She's been trying to visit. They won't let her because she's not family." "Good. I don't want her to see me like this." "She doesn't care what you look like, you idiot. She cares that you're alive." Ronan leaned forward. "She's staying in the city. Rented an apartment, started the paperwork to bring her sister over for treatment. She's building the life you wanted her to have." "Without me?" "She says she's waiting for you." "She shouldn't. I told her not to." "And when has that woman ever done what she's told?" Ronan smiled sadly. "She loves you, Cade. Really loves you, in a way I'm not sure you understand yet. That doesn't just disappear because you're locked up. It should. She deserves better than waiting 20 years for a man who might not survive prison. That's her choice to make, not yours." The guard tapped the glass, signaling their time was up. Ronan stood, pressed his hand against the partition. "Whatever happens at sentencing, you changed things, Cade. You ended something that needed ending. That counts for something." "Does it?" "Yeah, it does." Ronan left. Cade sat in the visitation room for a long time after, staring at the empty chair across from him, wondering if doing the right thing was supposed to hurt this much. The sentencing hearing arrived on a cold morning in November. Cade was led into the same courtroom, wearing the same orange jumpsuit, facing the same judge. But this time, the media presence was smaller. The spectacle had faded. All that remained was the grinding machinery of consequences. The prosecutor presented the case, a thorough recitation of Cade's crimes, the damage he'd caused, the lives he'd affected. It took 45 minutes to read through everything. Then it was the defense's turn. Sarah stood, and despite Cade's guilty plea, she fought for him. "Your Honor, while my client has accepted responsibility for his actions, I'd like to present mitigating factors for the court's consideration." She opened a folder. Cade Moriyama inherited his criminal organization at age 22, following his father's murder. He was a graduate student, studying to become a history teacher, when violence forced him into a world he never chose. "Counselor," the judge interrupted, "your client ran one of the largest criminal syndicates on the West Coast. His choices, regardless of how he came to them, resulted in significant harm." "I understand, Your Honor, but I'd also like to note that in his final act, Mr. Moriyama dismantled that organization entirely. He exposed the Han Consortium's operations to federal authorities, potentially preventing years of future criminal activity. He chose justice over self-preservation. He chose it after 11 years of choosing the opposite." "Yes, but doesn't redemption have to start somewhere?" Sarah looked back at Cade, then at the judge. "My client is 33 years old. If sentenced to the maximum, he'll spend the rest of his life in prison. I'm asking the court to consider that people can change, that someone who spent his youth building an empire of violence spent his final days tearing it down." The judge was quiet for a long moment. "Does the defendant wish to make a statement before sentencing?" Cade stood. His ribs had mostly healed, but standing still hurt. Everything hurt these days. "Your Honor, I don't expect mercy. I don't think I deserve it. I made choices that hurt people, destroyed families, perpetuated cycles of violence that will outlive me. He took a breath. But I want the court to know that I'm not the same person who walked into this courtroom 30 days ago. I've had time to think about the man I became, the man I wanted to be, and the gap between them. And what have you concluded? The judge asked. That I can't undo the past, can't bring back the people I hurt or erase the damage I caused. All I can do is accept the consequences and try to become someone different in whatever time I have left. Cade looked around the courtroom. If I get out of prison someday, I'm not going back to that life. I'm going to be the man my mother believed I could be. The man the woman I love deserves. Even if it takes me 20 years to get there. The judge studied him. Mr. Moriyama, I've presided over hundreds of criminal cases. I've heard every excuse, every justification, every plea for leniency. Rarely do I hear what you just said. Honest acknowledgement without deflection. She opened the file in front of her. On the charges of racketeering, money laundering, and criminal conspiracy, I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison with possibility of parole after 10 years contingent on good behavior and continued cooperation with federal authorities. Cade's knees nearly buckled. 15 years. Not life. Not the 30-plus he'd been expecting. I'm making this decision, the judge continued, not because I believe your crimes deserve leniency, but because I believe in the possibility of redemption. You've shown genuine remorse and taken concrete steps to dismantle the organization you built. That suggests a capacity for change that I'm willing to acknowledge. She banged the gavel. Court is adjourned. They led Cade out. In the corridor, Sarah caught up to him, smiling. 10 years with good behavior, she said. That's manageable. You could be out by 43. Thank you for fighting when I wouldn't fight for myself. Just doing my job. She handed him a piece of paper. This came for you this morning. The guards approved it. Cade unfolded the note. Amara's handwriting, familiar from all those late-night letters in his kitchen. I heard about the sentencing. 10 years is a long time, but it's not forever. I'll be here when you get out, I promise. Your mother would be proud of you. I'm proud of you. Wait for me, and I'll wait for you. Love, A. Cade folded the note carefully, tucked it into his jumpsuit pocket. It was foolish to hold on to hope, foolish to believe someone would actually wait a decade for him. But maybe foolish was okay. Maybe hope was the only thing worth holding on to. Batik. The first year was hell. Prison had its own ecosystem, its own rules, and Cade had to learn them all over again. He kept his head down, avoided trouble when possible, stood his ground when necessary. Got into 3 fights. 2 he won, 1 he lost badly enough to spend a week in medical. But slowly, things stabilized. He found a rhythm. Worked in the prison library, organizing books, helping other inmates with legal research. Enrolled in correspondence courses, working toward the history degree he'd abandoned 11 years ago. At night, he wrote letters to Amara. Long, rambling things about life inside, about the books he was reading, about the man he was trying to become. She wrote back every week, telling him about her sister Naletti's treatment, about the restaurant job she'd taken, about the city continuing without him. The letters kept him sane. Year 2 brought parole hearings for other inmates, reminders that time actually passed, that someday this would end. Cade stayed focused on good behavior, racking up points that would matter when his own parole hearing came. Ronan visited every few months, bringing news from outside. The Moriyama territories had been absorbed by smaller operations, none of them interested in the kind of empire Cade had run. The Han Consortium was completely dismantled, CO facing multiple life sentences. The city had moved on, the way cities always did. Year 3. Naledi arrived in the United States. Amara's letters filled with joy about her sister's improving health, about watching her experience snow for the first time, about family dinners and laughter Amara hadn't felt in years. Cade was happy for her, and heartbroken that he wasn't there to see it. Year 4 brought the first real test. Another inmate, someone with connections to the old syndicates, tried to recruit Cade for a smuggling operation inside the prison. Easy money, minimal risk, a way to make his time more comfortable. Cade said no, reported the attempt to the warden, earned himself enemies, and the reputation as a snitch. But he also earned trust from the administration, proof that he'd actually changed. Years 5 through 8 blurred together. Classes, library work, letters, occasional visits from Ronan or Sarah. The world outside became increasingly abstract, something that happened to other people, except for Amar's letters. Those stayed real. She told him about going back to school, studying to become a nurse practitioner, about Naledi graduating high school, planning to attend college, about buying a small house with a garden where she planted tomatoes and basil, thinking of Evelyn Moriyama and the life they'd almost had. Year 9. Amara's letters changed, became more serious, more forward-looking. I've been thinking about what happens when you get out, where you'll go, what you'll do. I know you probably think I'll have moved on by then, found someone else, built a life that doesn't include you. But Cade, I meant what I said. I'm waiting. Not because I'm stuck in the past, but because I genuinely believe in the future we could have, if you still want it. Cade wrote back the same day. I want it more than anything, but I also want you to be sure. 9 years is a long time to wait for someone. I wouldn't blame you if you changed your mind, if you decided loving an ex-convict with no job and no prospects wasn't worth the trouble. Whatever you choose, I'll understand. Her response came 2 days later. Stop giving me permission to leave. I'm not going anywhere. See you in a year. Year 10 arrived with a parole hearing scheduled for March. Cade prepared obsessively. Gathered every certificate from every class, every positive report from guards and counselors, every piece of evidence that he'd used his time constructively. Sarah helped him practice, running through likely questions, preparing him for skepticism. The hearing itself was anticlimactic. A panel of 3 people, bored expressions, asking perfunctory questions about his plans, his remorse, his likelihood of reoffending. Mr. Moriyama, one panel member asked. You had significant power and resources before your incarceration. What's to stop you from returning to that life once you're released? Nothing stops me except my own choices, Cade answered honestly. I could rebuild, reconnect with old contacts, slide back into familiar patterns. But I won't, because I've spent 10 years thinking about the man I was and the man I want to become. And those are 2 different people. That's easy to say in here, harder to live out there. I know, but I'm willing to try. They deliberated for 20 minutes. When they came back, the lead panel member looked almost surprised. Mr. Moriyama, after reviewing your record and considering your testimony, this panel is granting parole effective immediately. You'll be released within 72 hours, subject to standard monitoring and reporting requirements. Cade couldn't speak, could barely breathe. He was getting out. Gi asasi. The morning of his release, Cade stood in the prison processing area, wearing civilian clothes that didn't quite fit. Everything felt foreign. The fabric, the colors, the lack of numbers identifying him as property of the federal government. They handed him a plastic bag containing his personal effects. Wallet, watch. The letter from Amara he'd carried to his arraignment. Nothing else. No phone, no money beyond the standard release payment. No connections to his old life. He was starting over completely. The gates opened. Cade stepped through, feeling sunshine on his face for the first time in a decade, without bars between him and the sky. A car was parked across the street. Amara leaned against it, wearing jeans and a sweater, looking older than his memories, but exactly the same in all the ways that mattered. She saw him, smiled, didn't run, didn't shout, just waited while he crossed the street on legs that felt unsteady. They stood facing each other, separated by 10 years and 1,000 unspoken fears. Hi, Amara said finally. Hi. You look different. Older? So do you. Good different, though. She laughed, and the sound hit him like a physical thing. I wasn't sure you'd actually want to see me. Thought maybe after 10 years you'd... Cade kissed her, pulled her close and kissed her the way he'd dreamed about for a decade, tasting salt and sunshine and the future they'd somehow managed to preserve through sheer stubborn hope. When they broke apart, Amara was crying. I waited, she said unnecessarily. I know. I can't believe you actually did. Neither can I, honestly. But here we are. They got in the car. Amara drove them away from the prison toward the city that had continued spinning without them. On the way, she caught him up. Naledi was pre-med at university, Ronan had gone legitimate and was running a security consulting firm. The old neighborhoods had gentrified beyond recognition. And the house? Cade asked. The one with the garden? Still there, waiting for you. They drove to a neighborhood Cade didn't recognize. Small houses, tree-lined streets, the kind of quiet residential area where families live normal lives. Amara pulled into a driveway beside a modest two-story home with a garden along the back fence. "Come on," she said. "There's someone who wants to meet you." Inside, a young woman sat at the kitchen table, studying from medical textbooks. She looked up when they entered, and Cade saw Amara's features reflected in her face. Same eyes, same determined expression. "Cade, this is my sister Naledi. Naledi, this is the famous Cade Moriyama." Naledi stood, extended her hand. "I've heard a lot about you, most of it illegal." Cade shook her hand, caught off guard by her directness. "Most of it probably true. Amara says you're different now, that you've changed." "I'm trying to be." "Good. Because my sister's been waiting 10 years for you, and if you screw this up, I'll kill you myself." "Naledi?" Amara protested. "What? I'm just being honest." Naledi gathered her books. "I'm going to study at the library. Give you two some privacy. Nice meeting you, Cade. Try not to go back to prison." She left. Amara shook her head, embarrassed. "Sorry, she's protective." "I like her. She reminds me of you." They moved through the house, small but well kept. Evidence of Amara's life scattered throughout. Medical textbooks, photographs of her and Naledi, a painting of Table Mountain that must have come from South Africa. The back door led to the garden. Cade stepped outside and stopped. Tomatoes grew along one wall, exactly like the ones they'd planted together at his mother's mansion. Basil spread between them, herbs he couldn't name, vegetables in neat rows. "I planted this the year you went to prison," Amara said quietly. "Thought it would help me remember what we were building, what we were trying to become." Cade moved through the garden, touching leaves, feeling soil. It was real. All of it was real. "I don't have much to offer you," he said. "No money, no empire, no security. I'm just a guy with a record and a history degree I haven't finished yet." "I don't want an empire, I want you." "Why? After everything I've done, everything I put you through, why would you still want this?" Amara stepped close, took his hands. "Because I saw who you were underneath the violence. Saw the man who planted gardens with his mother, who cared about people even when caring was dangerous, who chose love when it would have been easier to choose revenge." She smiled. "That's the man I fell in love with, and that's the man standing in front of me now. I'm going to disappoint you. I'm going to make mistakes, struggle with my past, probably screw this up in ways neither of us can predict. I know, and I'm going to be patient, support you through it, and screw up in my own ways. That's what love is, Cade. Not perfection, just two people choosing each other every day despite the mess." Cade pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. For the first time in 10 years, he felt the weight lift slightly. Not gone, maybe it would never be fully gone, but lighter, manageable. "I want to marry you," he said quietly. "Not now. Not until I've proven I can actually build a life worth sharing. But someday, when I'm not a complete disaster, I want to marry you." Amara pulled back, looked him in the eye. "Ask me now." "What? You said someday. I'm saying ask me now. I don't need you to be perfect or successful or anything other than who you are right now. So ask me." Cade's heart hammered. This was insane. He'd been out of prison for 4 hours. Had no job, no prospects, no idea what came next. But looking at Amara, seeing the certainty in her eyes, he realized she was right. Some things didn't need perfect timing. They just needed courage. He dropped to one knee in the garden his mother would have loved. "Amara Vale, will you marry me? Will you take a chance on a broken man trying to become whole? Will you build a life with me, starting from absolutely nothing?" "Yes," Amara said, pulling him up. "Yes to all of it." They kissed in the garden while tomatoes grew and basil spread and the afternoon sun washed everything in gold. The wedding was small. They held it in the same garden 6 months later, once Cade had found steady work as a teaching assistant at a community college and started rebuilding something resembling a normal life. Naledi officiated, wearing a dress her sister had made. Ronan stood as best man, looking uncomfortable in a suit, but genuinely happy. A few others attended: Sarah the lawyer, some of Amara's co-workers, neighbors who'd accepted Cade despite his past. No one from his old life. That chapter was closed. Amara wore a simple white dress and flowers in her hair. Cade wore a suit Ronan had bought him. Nothing fancy, but clean and new. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promises about choosing each other through hard times, about building something good from broken pieces. When Naledi pronounced them married, Cade kissed his wife and felt something he'd thought was lost forever. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. The reception was held in the backyard, food cobbled together by friends, music from someone's phone. Nothing expensive or elaborate, just people who cared about them, celebrating love that had survived impossible odds. Late in the evening, Cade found himself standing at the edge of the garden, watching Amara dance with her sister. Ronan appeared beside him, holding 2 beers. "You did good," Ronan said, handing him one. "Against all odds, you actually pulled this off." "We'll see. Ask me again in a year." "I'm asking now. You're happy, aren't you?" Cade considered the question. Was he happy? He had a wife he loved, a home that felt real, work that mattered. His past would always cast shadows, always complicate things. But standing here, watching the woman he'd somehow not lost dance in a garden that shouldn't exist. "Yeah," he said. "I think I am." They drank in comfortable silence. Around them the party continued, laughter drifting through warm evening air. "Your mother would be proud," Ronan said eventually. "You became the man she believed you could be." "I hope so. I think about her every day. Wonder what she'd say about all this." "She'd say you chose love over fear, just like she told you to." Cade smiled. "Yeah, she would." Amara caught his eye from across the garden, gestured for him to join her. Cade handed his beer to Ronan, moved toward his wife through clusters of celebrating people. This was what redemption looked like, he realized. Not some grand gesture or dramatic transformation. Just quiet mornings, growing things with people who stayed. Just choosing every day to be better than yesterday. Just love, built slowly from broken pieces. He took Amar's hand, pulled her close, and they danced under string lights while the garden his mother had inspired grew wild around them. Book. 2 years later, Amar gave birth to a daughter. They named her Evelyn, after the woman who'd believed in second chances even when the world hadn't. The baby was small, perfect, screaming with healthy lungs that filled the hospital room with sound. Cade held his daughter for the first time and felt his entire world reorganize around this tiny human who depended on him completely. Fear hit him harder than any bullet. What if he failed her? What if his past contaminated her future? What if he couldn't be the father she deserved? "Hey," Amara said softly from the hospital bed. "I can hear you spiraling from here. I don't know how to do this. Don't know how to be a father when my own father was a different person in a different situation. You're not him, Cade. You're you, and you're going to make mistakes. But you're also going to love her fiercely and protect her completely and teach her that people can change." Amara smiled. "That's more than most kids get." Cade looked down at Evelyn, at her tiny fingers wrapped around his thumb. She'd done nothing to deserve a father with his history, but she'd gotten him anyway, and now his job was to make sure that history stayed history. "I promise," he whispered to her. "I promise I'll be better for you. I'll be the man your grandmother believed I could be. I'll build a life you're proud to be part of." The baby yawned, unimpressed by promises. Cade laughed, feeling tears on his face. "Come here," Amara said, making room in the bed. "Let me see both of you." Cade settled beside his wife, their daughter between them, and for the first time understood what his mother had tried to teach him all those years ago. Family wasn't about perfection. Wasn't about being worthy or deserving or somehow earning love through good behavior. It was about showing up, about choosing each other every day despite the mess and fear and uncertainty, about planting gardens and watching them grow. Ultrasim. 5 years after that, Cade finished his doctorate in history. The ceremony was held at the same community college where he'd started as a teaching assistant, now teaching full courses on American criminal justice history. Fitting, given his expertise. Amara sat in the audience with Evelyn, now 7, and Naledi, who'd just completed her residency. Ronan was there too, along with Sarah the lawyer and a collection of students who'd somehow seen past his record to the teacher underneath. When they called his name, Dr. Cade Moriyama, he walked across the stage feeling the weight of every choice that had led here. The violence, the pain, the years in prison, the slow crawl back toward something resembling normal. All of it had brought him to this moment. He took the diploma, shook hands with the dean, looked out at his family. Evelyn waved enthusiastically, shouting, "That's my daddy!" loud enough to make everyone laugh. Amara beamed with pride. Naledi wiped away tears. This was the life his mother had wanted for him. Not power or wealth or empire, just honest work, genuine love, and the simple dignity of becoming someone worth the faith people placed in him. After the ceremony, they went to the restaurant that had opened in the old neighborhood where his mother's mansion once stood. The building was gone now, replaced by condos and boutiques, but the memory remained, woven into every conversation Cade had with his daughter about the grandmother she'd never meet. "Grandma Evelyn would have loved you," Cade told his daughter over dinner. "She was strong and kind and believed people could change even when they'd stop believing in themselves." "Like you changed?" Evelyn asked. "Like I'm still changing, every day." "That's good. Mama says changing is how we grow." Cade looked at Amara, who smiled over her wine glass. "Your mama's very smart." They ate and talked and laughed, a family built from impossible circumstances, held together by stubborn hope and the refusal to let the past define the future. That night, after putting Evelyn to bed, Cade and Amara sat in their garden. The tomatoes had multiplied over the years, spreading across the back fence. The basil grew wild between vegetables they'd added, peppers, herbs, even a small lemon tree that probably wouldn't survive winter, but they'd planted anyway. "I've been thinking," Amara said, leaning against him, "about expanding, maybe opening a restaurant." "A restaurant?" "Korean and South African fusion, combining your mother's heritage with mine, a place that celebrates bringing different worlds together." Cade turned the idea over in his mind. It felt right somehow, a way to honor his mother while building something new with his wife. "I love it," he said. "Let's do it." "Really?" "Really. We'll call it Evelyn's Garden. Make it a place families want to come, where food brings people together instead of violence driving them apart." Amara kissed him. "Your mother would love that." "I hope so." They sat in the garden while night settled around them, planning futures and dreaming dreams that felt possible instead of distant fantasies. Above them, stars emerged one by one, pinpricks of light against darkness. Cade thought about the man he'd been, ruthless, violent, trapped in cycles he couldn't escape. Thought about the journey that had brought him here, the people lost along the way, the prices paid for transformation. It had cost him everything, his empire, his freedom, years of his life he'd never get back. But sitting here with his wife, knowing his daughter slept safely upstairs, understanding that tomorrow held the possibility of building something good, it had been worth it. Every sacrifice, every hard choice, every moment of doubt. Worth it. Amara's hand found his in the darkness. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything. And nothing. Just feeling grateful." "For what?" "For you. For Evelyn. For this garden and this house and the chance to become someone different." He squeezed her hand. "For love being stronger than fear." That's very poetic for a former crime boss. Former crime boss, current history professor, future restaurant owner. I contain multitudes. Amara laughed, the sound filling the garden, echoing off the walls where tomatoes grew and basil spread, and life continued despite everything trying to stop it. This was redemption, Cade understood finally. Not a destination, but a journey. Not perfection, but persistent effort. Not erasing the past, but refusing to let it define the future. Just planting gardens and watching them grow. Just choosing love, every day, even when fear whispered that it wasn't enough. Just being human, flawed and broken, and somehow still worthy of second chances. The stars wheeled overhead. The garden rustled in the breeze. Inside the house, their daughter dreamed of whatever 7-year-olds dreamed about. And Cade Moriyama, former syndicate boss, ex-convict, husband, father, teacher, sat in the darkness beside the woman who'd never stopped believing in him and felt something he'd thought was lost forever. Peace. Not the absence of struggle, just the presence of something worth struggling for. And that, finally, was enough.